What if Jacob loved Rosalie? Yesterday. So that's everything I know. I know it's a mess, but that's my mess to clean up. Any questions? I stood in front of T.H.E.Pack and glanced at each of their shocked faces. Well, shocked is an understatement. Dumbstruck is more accurate. None of the wolves could speak. Unfortunately, with Brady and Embry patrolling, I was on my own with the explanations. But you, how? That makes so much sense. With Quill, Sam and Seth speaking at the same time, it was almost hard to decipher who was saying what. I grinned at Seth K, knowing he'd get it from all the times we spent together guarding the Cullens. I'm not asking for permission or making things harder than they need to be. I'm stating facts and letting you know what's happening, so we can move past this. This is how things are now, and with new pieces being shifted, things are falling more into place. I spoke firmly and made sure no one would question the new turn of events. All the wolves seemed to nod, but some still had questions in their eyes. I could tell their brains were turning to make sense of things that I only just understood myself. And when will you tell her? We need to be prepared for anything that could go wrong. Sam was frowning as he spoke. I rolled my eyes. Don't turn this into an inconvenience. It's what was planned all along. You can't just change the rules. I growled out. Are you listening? Some wolves put their heads down, not wanting to make matters worse. As I was saying, this is not an inconvenience, and if you think so, take it up with the spirits. You know as well as any of us who make the rules. Sam nodded his head slowly, growling with anger, but slightly ashamed of himself. I continued, as for when I'm telling her, it should be tomorrow. I need to break the news to Bella first, as she is a shield. I don't need the mind reader ruining things before I get a chance to speak to her, and Bella can shield her mind. The wolves all seemed in agreement. Just as the pack was dismissed from the meeting, Brady walked in with Embry. They switched shifts with Colin and Quill. How did it go? What did they say? Brad Y was bouncing with excitement, and I gave him the rundown. So tomorrow is it, huh? Embry grinned. Yeah, tomorrow is it. I took a deep breath and made a plan in my head for talking with Bella. Today, I rang up Bella only a couple hours ago asking if she was free to talk. I was extremely nervous about what I was going to tell her. What if she hates me? What if she wants to kill me? What will the rest of the family think? You see, I've had this secret for a couple of days now, and I was begged to confront the situation now. I still can't believe it myself. How could this happen? Well, I know how, and it all makes sense. I just hope everyone else agrees. So here I was, on my way to the Cullen house to try to break the news lightly, hopefully without getting my tail torn off. I shuddered at the thought and saw the house in front of me. I heard Beethoven playing faintly and grinned when I realized who was listening to it. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and stomped up the stairs leading to the front door. I took one more deep breath and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. The mantra kept repeating. I was so nervous that I forgot I normally just walked into the house. I shook my head. What was I thinking? I heard Bella call from upstairs, but I was too in my head to hear what she said. Did she say come in? I knew she was fixing Nessie's dress, so maybe her hands were full. I heard her voice and nearly turned tail and ran. I heard her walk towards the door, and each step made me more and more nervous. Without thinking, I shook my head one last time and swung the door open. Really? Was that necessary, dog? Don't you have any household manners at all? You should wait until someone answers the door. Rosalie stood there with all her beauty, and I took her in for a split second. I gave her my biggest grin and continued our favorite bickering game. Sorry, Miss Sparkle, I didn't know. It took a vampire forever to answer the door. I thought that you people were quick. Next time, I'll just bring a magazine or two and wait like a good boy. I smirked. Two can play at this game. Jake. Bella came down the stairs and jumped into my arms, hugging me tightly. I thought I heard you walking up. You're earlier than you said. I toned down my grin and hugged her back. I missed you too, Bells. I figured the earlier the better. That's just how quickly I move. I laughed and felt more relief that it was just these two at home right now. I felt much more confident. I can win Bella over, I know it. Feeling cocky, I looked over Bella's shoulder at Rosalie and smirked again, winking. I heard her growl softly, while Bella grabbed my hand and pulled me upstairs. I chuckled at the bath comment that Rosalie made. "Why don't you come bathe me?" I wanted to shout back at her. Rosalie's comment only seemed to upset Bella, as she sighed. "Rosalie." Bella shook her head, then turned to me. "So Jake, tell me what the urgent phone call was about." It sounded serious. I felt only slightly clammy now. This was Bella, my best friend. But what if she turned against me? What if things were going to end badly? My thoughts were beginning to take over my confidence. Bella looked at me curiously. "Jake, is everything okay? I'm sorry about Rose, things have been off with her." Immediate concern snapped me out of my nervous dilemma. "Off? What do you mean, off?" "Well, I'm not too sure. I get the feeling everyone knows something is happening, but they won't tell me." "What's happening?" Now my nerves were coming back. "Did Edward know?" Bella sighed. "Well, everyone is acting differently. We used to all go hunting as a family. Now for the past several months we seem to go separately. Emmett is always fishing with someone I've never heard of or seen. Edward is seeming to keep something from me and is angry about something. The rest of the family seems secretive. Edward is angry. Uh-oh." I tried not to gulp or show fear. "Would it be something about the wolves?" "No, I don't think so. He would have easily given that away. I remember him speaking his mind of his distaste." Bella thought for a moment. "Unless you know something, do you? What did you need to talk to me about? It's now or never." "Bells, I don't want you to get upset. I only just put things together." "Things? What things?" Bella scrunched up her face, confused. I sighed. "I didn't imprint on Ness. Brady did." I waited for her to respond, but she was still processing what I was telling her. "Is this some kind of joke?" Bella paused and was about to speak again, but I cut her off. "I swear, it's still new to me, but I realized all my actions towards your family made sense." "But you're protective." "I still feel protective over Ness. She's your child, Bells. I love you both and would still do anything for you. Just not as an imprint." "But how do you know you didn't?" "Unless you imprinted on someone else." I nodded slowly. "I did. It's one of the reasons I needed to talk with you. I need you to shield your mind, my mind and my imprint's mind." "But you wouldn't need me to do that unless," Bella gasped, finally connecting the dots. "No." I flinched, afraid of how she was going to react and take the news. Instead of slapping me, Bella squealed loudly with excitement. "Jacob Black, you can't be serious. This isn't a joke." Bella laughed and squealed again, jumping up and down. I could have sworn we were going to go through the floorboards. I grinned and chuckled at her enthusiasm. "This is going better than I thought. I'm so very relieved." "Well, and confused, of course." I nodded and widened my eyes when I heard Rosalie's footsteps. They were quiet, but I wasn't ready to tell her just yet. Bella had so much excitement. She threw herself into my arms. I heard her before I saw her. "Hey, what's going on?" Rosalie asked, as she stepped into Bella's room. Bella immediately cleared her throat and pushed me away, while I rubbed my neck. "Great, now I'm back to being nervous. I can't tell her like this." I was so nervous I knew I had to get out of here quickly. "It's nothing, blonde Rosalie, don't worry about it." "Bella, I really have to go now. I need to make a plan and make sure things don't fall apart," I said, as I walked down the stairs followed by Bella. I was hoping she understood what I was implying. "But maybe I can help come up with something and then you can talk to her about it later tonight, Jake. She won't be too upset or disappointed. Especially with the new details." Ella smiled and stood up, hugging me goodbye. "This should be my plan, not one Bella creates. No Bells. This time it has to be all on me." I smiled at her. "Once everything is figured out, the plan will be in motion. I'll come by later to talk to her." I hugged Bella back. "Later tonight. That's the plan." "Oh Jake, I'm sure she'll understand. Everyone will understand, I'm sure of it. After what's been going on recently. You just have to tell her. We need some good news right about now." Bella nodded at her words and stepped back. "You're taking this really well, Bella. Thank you. I was really worried about your reaction." I glanced quickly at Rosalie and then back at Bella. I need to go before too much is given away and she finds out without all the context. I'm just happy that everyone will remain friends and we can try to understand how these things happened. It's one step at a time. My daughter will eventually understand the whole situation, she just needs comfort and realization. In time, she will see this as a blessing. As long as you don't stop coming over, that is. We'll still need our best friend, you know. Bella punched my shoulder in a joking way. I'm just scared about the two big men. And I'd never stop coming over. You're all still a part of my life, you know. Edward is a bit scary when things don't go his way. But Emmett, some of the wolves have had near fights with him and it's not pretty. Don't worry, Jake, I'll talk to him. Edward's a lot to handle, but he didn't want this at all, remember? Bella laughed and then continued. Trust me, he'll be very pleased after hearing this. And if not, I can always get him thinking of other things. While Bella smirked, I winced and groaned. I didn't need to know that, Bells. I shuddered. What you do is your business. I looked at Rosalie, took a deep breath and was about to reach out and hug her, when she dodged my arms. What is wrong with me? Not yet. Get away from me, mutt. I watched as she ran her hands over her body, brushing away imaginary germs. I let out a small whine, as it killed me to not touch her yet. How is this fair? She's right there. My heartbeat increased and I noticed Rosalie stop what she was doing and glance at me. I tried to avert my gaze, but kept getting caught looking at her. I saw her smirk and then close her eyes. What I wouldn't give to know what she was thinking. Bella Bine. Bella didn't read the room and feel the tension. Rosalie, I asked him to be nicer to you, and that means calling you by your proper name. It also may include showing some sort of friendship towards you like he does the rest of the family. You're being a bad influence on Ness. I don't want her or others we may encounter to learn to hate wolves and push them away, like you do. You're creating that bad image of the wolves. I raised my eyebrow. Since when did we discuss this? Maybe Bella really does want to help and is doing what she can. I grinned and Bella smiled back. What I didn't expect was Rosalie's response. It cut me like a knife. Oh Bella, she's going to marry the dog whether you like it or not. She'll never have a negative image of them. There's no need to stop acting as I always do. Just like you, she'll always love wolves. I'm not going to change my whole demeanor for her. As for others, Bella sensed my pain and glared at her. Rosalie sighed and continued. Fine if you are. Ely want me to stop, I'll try to stop. But I'm not making any promises or guarantees. She smirked with a twinkle in her eyes and ran out of the house. Thank you for that, I whispered to Bella, not knowing how close she was. Bella got the hint and also whispered. Absolutely. She shouldn't say such things. No, I mean thank you for covering for me to be able to say her name. I feel like now is as good a time as any to start. Bella nodded. Of course, Jake. I just hope you end up happy. We sensed Rosalie walk back into the house with suspicion. We stopped talking and I felt a tapping on my shoulder. Rosalie stood on her tiptoes and kissed my cheek. At first I was shocked with pure joy, but then I felt the residue of blood that I saw on her lips. She was smiling while she backed away. It was instinct for me to grimace and step away, wiping off my cheek. See Bella, I try to be nice, and he doesn't even want me to try. Rosalie sighed dramatically. Oh well, I'm sure our friendship wasn't meant to be after all. She shrugged and was just about to walk away when instinct made me act. I grabbed her arm and spun her to face me. I glared at her, upset that she didn't feel our connection yet. Oh yeah, do you think so? How about this? I hugged her small body tightly against me. She tried to squirm away, but gasped in shock. I was grinning, hoping she was realizing what was happening. That was, until she growled and said, Dog mutt, if you don't let go of me right this second, I will bite you. When the words flew out of her mouth, I weakened my hold on her. I knew right then there she needed to be told the truth. But I would do it without her being upset and with the right words, so I don't mess up. I ran out the door to make a plan. I ran to the edge of the woods and stripped off my clothes. I tied them to my ankle and phased. Luckily it was just me in wolf form for the moment, and I ran alone, coming up with a plan to explain everything to my imprint. I was hoping for a few hours of planning how to tell her tonight. As the future would have it, not everything happens as planned. I was running through the woods thinking of the best way I could tell her without getting my head chewed off. If she could just be more open-minded. I hated that I could be the one to cause her any pain or suffering for something not in her control. Even I hated the thought of imprinting at first. I still hate the idea of anyone choosing a mate for anyone. Even parents who choose their suitors for their children. I shook my head and let out a puff of air that probably sounded like a sneeze. However, when you think about it and really understand that you'd choose the same mate you imprinted on in any lifetime, it makes more sense. The only thing that none of us could comprehend was why Quill imprinted on Claire when she was a baby. But that was a story for another time. Back to my planning. I had made it to the edge of the woods and saw the ocean line. I loved the beach. NY thing that involved the sand and water made my wolf happy. I quickly threw on my cutoffs and stepped into the sand. I closed my eyes and breathed in the salt in the air. I could never leave this place, it was paradise. But I could for her whatever she wanted. My eyes snapped open. I couldn't believe my thoughts. I always imagined staying here with my friends and family. But then my mom died and then the twins moved away. Then all my friends and I became wolves. I wanted nothing more than to just live a normal life. That is, until I found the true meaning of my wolf change. I didn't like turning into a wolf without warning. I didn't like the thought of imprinting. I didn't like being told what I could and couldn't do. However, if being turned into a wolf meant staying with her forever, I would phase every single day for the rest of my life. I've seen a side of her that very few get to see. I can't believe how imprinting has changed my mind. I grinned thinking about the ways my life would become better. But first things first, telling her. I don't think just coming out and telling her would be smart. I would need to find a way to get her alone and away from others. Then I could. My trail of thoughts ended when I felt two others phase into wolves. My first thought was on intruders. I quickly scrambled up and ran to the woods, phased immediately and saw what two others wolves were seeing and thinking. She's going left, Paul shouted in our minds. Stop her, we're almost there, Seth responded. Don't let her get away. Quill thought aloud. We don't know her intentions. My heart was pounding at the thought of danger. Until I saw what or who they were chasing. My heart nearly stopped and I ran as fast as my body could go. Stop. Don't do anything. I heard one of them growl and noticed they had Rosalie trapped. What does she want? Seth asked curiously. Does it matter? Paul growled. I'm staying behind for the element of surprise. Quill stated. It seemed like they were ignoring me. Paul and Quill, you of all people know it does matter. Stop being pricks. I was so close. I phased back, quickly threw on the cutoffs and ran at her. I noticed Rosalie was about to let down her guard. But then she growled at them and was about to fight them. She must not have heard me coming because I easily wrapped my arms around her when I got close enough. She doesn't even feel as cold as I would have expected. She felt more lukewarm. It was nice. I felt her freeze and begin to melt into my arms. Yes, this is good. Before I could say a word, I was just as quickly thrown to the ground on my back with her strength. That's going to hurt for a few minutes. Even though the words were knocked out of me, I spoke up anyway. Guys, back off, she's with me. I coughed and reached out to grab Rosalie's leg to keep her from running. Then I gave her a huge grin, letting her know that she didn't bother me. She pushed my hand off of her and I dropped the grin. Quill made me forget that I was just knocked down with his words. Jacob, what is that leech doing here? She doesn't even have Nessie with her. He stepped out of the woods, in his cutoffs. The other two quickly changed and also threw on cutoffs, folding their arms across their chests. I growled. Don't call her that, she's on our side. And she's helping me with something. Remember what Brady mentioned earlier? He couldn't help my problem. So I needed more clarification. And Quill, you know why she doesn't need to have Nessie. I stood up, brushed myself off and stepped closer to Rosalie. I noticed with a slight frown that she stepped away again. This is going to be harder than I thought. I know and I still don't understand. Quill sighed and shrugged. He gestured for Paul and Seth to follow him. Come on. Emily was baking something before we left. The other wolves didn't need to be told twice, they followed grinning from ear to ear. With it being the two of us, I turned to glance at Rosalie and spoke suddenly. Rosalie, what the hell are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. I caught her rolling her eyes. Why does it matter? Bella or Ness aren't here, so why should I converse with you, dog? She sighed, then continued. It's not like you can help me anyways. Everything is just perfect on Puppy Island. You have your perfect life. I held back a chuckle when she referred to La Push as Puppy Island. I watched her start to march back to her side of the border, before I grabbed her shoulder to turn her to face me. Was this it? Could I tell her now? Wanna bet, Blondie, we all have our problems. The way I understand it is that talking out problems is the best kind of therapy. So what's wrong? Obviously something is bothering you deeply. Is it your clothes, nails, makeup, hair, husband? Quote, I saw her squint her eyes and snap up to look in mine. Who said I had a husband problem? You stay out of my head and my problems. It's none of your business. She shouted angrily. Great, now I messed up. I need to backpedal or this is not going to work. If I want her to open up, I need to change my strategy. Why would I bring him up? Well, what else could it be? You expect me to believe that you're this upset over choosing the wrong dress to wear? Or the wrong shade of lipstick? You don't have to worry. Thinking of the types of clothes she wore made me trail my eyes over her body, unintentionally. When I realized what I was doing, I quickly looked away. My heart rate and breathing picked up. What's wrong with me? Control yourself. I caught her smirk. That's really none of your business, so I'm not going to tell you. I wouldn't want you to think that we were friends or anything. We just have to socialize for Ness. Sake anyway, I hate you and you hate me. That's the way it has to be. We just need to tolerate each other for the family. I chuckled. Wow, now you're rhyming. Now I know something is wrong. Then spoke more seriously. Listen, if you don't want that, I won't think of us as friends. Just think of us as two people talking about each other's problems aloud, where we both just happen to be in the same vicinity. That's all, and we might as well start practicing to be friendly Tawa. RDS one another. I held back my disappointment. I would do anything to make her happy. Whatever I said seemed to be the right words because she sighed and balled her fists to fight her urge to run. Rosalie turned away from me and spoke out. Emmett cheated on me, has been for a while now. I just found out this afternoon. I was suddenly infuriated with that man. How could he? I ran through any pieces of information I could think of that would imply this being true, besides being told by Rosalie, of course. Bella said he was going fishing with someone unknown. The family doesn't hunt together as much anymore. I growled, noticing if Rosalie could, she'd be crying. It's all over her face. Are you serious? I know he was gone a lot, but what a dumbass, I couldn't finish a sentence. I was so mad. I growled and shook my head. I began shaking head to toe. I'm going to end his pathetic life. I spoke quickly before turning around to do something I would never regret. Don't worry, Rosalie. I'll find him and kill him for you. Jacob turned around to run into the woods. Just as I was about to remove my cutoffs and phase, I felt her grab my arm and I instantly stopped shaking. I looked down at her. I saw her close her eyes and speak. Mutt, Jacob, please don't do that. She said my name. I love the way it sounds coming out of her mouth. Inside I was fighting the anger and excitement of her actually communicating with me. Not understanding my internal battle, she continued with a sigh. He's already long gone, so there's no point in chasing after him. I couldn't contain my excitement any further. You called me by my name. I smirked with confidence that things may really end right after all. I saw her eyes grow wide. Does that mean we're on a friendship basis now? We're best friends. Are we going to exchange numbers now? Have sleepovers? I chuckled and smirked again. I would have any sleepover you want. No. What are you? I mean no, I have too much to deal with, Jack. I'm going to leave now, dog. I quickly dropped the smirk as Rosalie frowned and ran off. I chased behind her, not letting her get too far ahead. I grabbed her hand, which was a perfect fit. Rose, if it's okay that I call you that. I'm sorry your husband did that to you. He's a real prick and he will have hell to pay. But we can change the subject. If you're fine with it, I'd like to take you to the cliffs. Just to pass time by and to just get away from everything. I was worried she would turn me down. This can't end like this. Please say yes. I promise there will be no more talk of him. I will never mention him again. I don't know, Jacob. I should get home. I could tell she was internally fighting a battle within herself. I just hoped the part that was meant to be with me won her over. I knew I had to persuade her now, or I might not get this chance again for a while. I held my breath and gave one more attempt. Please, Rosé, I won't try to argue or fight with you. We can try being friends, or whatever you want to call it, for everyone. I bit my tongue before I could say too much and ruin everything I've built to this point. I saw her smirk. That was a good sign, right? I was about to turn and give up, when I heard her, "Fine, this will be the only time it will happen, and we never speak of it to anyone, ever. We can try being friends, for the sake of everyone. But if one word of him comes up, or we start arguing or fighting, I'm going home." I grinned so big I thought it would get stuck. Great, never telling a soul, that's a promise. In my excitement, I quickly appeared behind some bushes, and before she could run off, I came out in wolf form. I noticed her gaze in awe and bit her lip before turning away. Oh yeah, this'll be so worth it. I grew smug and began leading us to the cliffs. With my tail and head held high, I knew nothing could ruin this moment. I was the happiest wolf in the world. I'm going to finally get my chance to talk to her. I can let her lead the conversation until the part where I can tell her the truth. Although she was quiet, I knew she was following as close as she wanted to. She was still cautious, and I couldn't blame her. And, while I was thinking of how everything was lining up, we were nearing the cliffs. My happy and excited thoughts turned upside down when one thought ran through my head. I don't have my cutoffs. I was not going to make things more awkward and worse by confessing things naked. I slowed down and finally came to a stop before going onto the cliffs. This is so embarrassing. As I looked behind me and saw Rosalie approaching, I thought about asking her to stay here, while I get a change of clothes. But if I did that, 1, I'd have to phase back anyways, and 2, I couldn't guarantee her waiting for me to return. I was again in another internal battle and I hated it. The only thing I could think of was to spend some alone time in her presence and hope she was comfortable enough to allow us to meet again. And soon, I heard her let out a laugh. "I think you forgot something important, dog." I saw her smirk and shook her head. Now is not the time to joke around. I'm really upset that all my planning turned to dust. My thoughts were so intense with emotions that I let out a whine and growl, while pawing at the ground near her feet. I was trying to let her know that I was upset and hurting without using words. I let out a puff of frustrated air and walked over to the cliff edge and laid down, disappointed in myself. I felt her light touch on my head, where she patted my head and perked up. Maybe this won't be as bad as I thought. There, it's all right. Maybe the silence is better, Rosalie said as she sat down and leaned back. We both looked out over the ocean and I felt at peace. This makes everything better. I guess she couldn't relax because I heard her sigh. I hope she's not planning on leaving. I could be content to not talk and just be in the same vicinity as her. I looked up when I felt her move her head and look around at the things around us. I saw her stand up and almost whined for her to stay. She brushed off her hands and looked at her dress. I saw the gears in her head turning and squinted my eyes. What was she? I saw her glance around one more time. Oh no, she wouldn't. She isn't thinking. I tilted my head to the side, half curious and half nervous for what she was about to do. No, I growled out as my eyes widened. I saw her reach behind her back to unzip her dress. I immediately stood up. She shouldn't expose herself here. Anyone could see her and she would regret it eventually, and I couldn't possibly tell her the truth with that over my head. I head-butted her and lifted my left paw onto her shoulder. Rosalie shook her head. It's either this or I need to go home. I will not be miserable in my own thoughts right now, and I am not talking aloud to myself. As soon as she said that, I nodded in understanding. She doesn't want to be alone. She still wants to be around me. I let out a breath of air, lowered my paw and turned around. I didn't want her to think I was an animal. It was the right thing to do, as she was doing me this favor. I heard the zipper go down and did everything I could to not turn around and sneak a peek. 99 bottles of beer in La Push, 99 bottles of beer. Drink it down, pass it around. 98 bottles of beer in La Push. I couldn't stop myself from being distracted from my distractions. I heard the dress come off and turned around with wide eyes. She was the most beautiful creature I'd ever seen. It wasn't fair we couldn't have figured things out much earlier. I could tell she was as embarrassed, but snapped into being confident quickly. Somehow that was even hotter and I felt myself sweating, even though the weather was on the cooler side. My breathing changed, as did my heart rate. I was going to get into so much trouble with her and I couldn't wait. I'm so happy that neither of us changed our minds about leaving. And I'm even more grateful no wolves are fazed to see what I'm seeing right now. Okay, dog, Rosalie said while holding her dress out to me. Take this dress, wrap it around your waist and hurry back. The sooner you come back, the sooner this can be over. She placed the dress beside her and sat back down, trying to cover herself as best she could. I was too excited to leave right away, so I walked over to thank her and licked her cheek. I couldn't resist nuzzling my nose into her neck to breathe in her scent. It was intoxicating. I felt her give in and lean towards me. I guess she remembered she was not fully clothed because she froze and said, Jacob, go, or I go home. She didn't have to tell me twice. I grabbed the dress in my jaws and graciously pranced over to the woods. I phased and wrapped the small dress as best I could, hiding myself. This will be difficult to hide if I think of her body. I need to think of other things to calm down. Revengeful intrude. Hissing cat's paws attitude wolf breath. Okay, that's better. I walked back over to where my imprint sat and grinned before clearing my throat. I sat beside her, knowing she couldn't get cold, but still wanting to be as close to her as possible, without getting my tail torn off. She scooted away slightly, and I held back a smirk. She's trying to fight this, even though she doesn't understand why she's doing so. To keep her from rethinking her plan too much, I figured I should talk first. I let out a chuckle and broke the ice. Thank you. I know this looks ridiculous, but I do thank you. Maybe this is another thing we should keep between us. Although I wanted the world to know how much I wanted her to be mine, I also knew she wasn't ready for declarations and everything. She didn't even know the truth yet. I heard her beautiful laugh. Quill and Embry fighting not having enough food, Dad snoring. I took a deep breath before she spoke. Yeah, I doubt anyone would even believe us if we said anything, anyways. We do look pretty silly. I felt her bump my shoulder and I did everything I could to refrain from wrapping my arm around her. She smiled and then looked down at herself. She thinks she looks silly. Are you kidding me? Before I could stop the words flying out of my mouth, I spoke. No, I mean, well, you don't. I looked at her up and down and smirked. You look see. Rap. I was in too deep. What else can I think of? Burning trees, muddy ground, Rosalie touching me. The thought came out just as she covered my mouth with her hand and then said, don't say anything, Wolf. Did I think that aloud? I thought back to what I said before my thoughts went haywire. I was calling her hot. Oh, I didn't want her to run off, so when she removed her hand I responded, no more, Jacob. I chuckled and bumped her shoulder back. If this is our way of touching now, then I'll take all I can. Jacob, I'm sorry about earlier. Bella told me to say that to you. Rosalie wrapped her arms back around her legs, then stared off into the ocean. Sorry about what? What happened? I thought back to our whole day so far. Say what? That you're sorry. I looked at her confused. You have nothing to ever be sorry for. Yeah, well, and for everything else, for me being mean mostly. I just thought of our bickering as being fun, I guess. Almost like a game between us. Which I know is strange. It was my way of coping with being around the enemy. Enemy. I frowned. The thought of being her enemy was making my wolf sad. I know we should be enemies, but the wolf wants what the wolf wants. How can I tell her that? I was careful with my next words. Sure, I know what you're talking about. But, I'm sorry too. I reached out to give her a side hug, but she leaned away. I guess she's still not ready for that. Note taken. I tried not to look too disappointed. Sorry, Jacob, but if any of the wolves, the Cullens or even Ness saw us, this wouldn't look very good. Ideas or oughts might be insinuated, and that's not good. They would probably think something. There's already so much drama. Could this be my opportunity? I thanked the spirits and grinned. Actually, about Nessie, I need to talk to you. I wanted to tell you that I didn't imp. What the hell is this? A voice thundered that made my wolf stand in alert. I did everything in my power to keep from phasing right then and there. Why are you with a mutt? And this hound, especially? I let out a low growl. How dare he speak low of me to my imprint? Emmett. I felt her jump up and glare at him. What are you even doing here? She asked, getting angry. I wanted to stop everything from escalating, so I jumped up beside her, knowing she had my support. She would not be alone in this. How dare he upset her? Leave her alone, man. And who are you calling names? I lunged forward, going to punch Emmett, when I heard the hottest noise I'd ever heard. Rosalie was growling softly at me to stay out of this, and I lifted my hands up, backing away. I had to bite my tongue to keep from sweeping her in my arms and running off with her. I knew she'd hate that. Excuse me, it should be your nap time, pup. Emmett growled, stepped forward and pushed me. Rosalie jumped in between us and pushed him back towards the forest to not make a bigger scene where anyone could see us. Back up now, Emmett. Why are you even here? You were banished. You're supposed to be gone. I heard her growl differently with more anger. Then she pushed him against a tree. I was clenching my fists to stop from going wolf mode. She shouldn't be near him, let alone touching him. Baby, you don't get to decide what I choose to do. I was told to stay out of the house, not the entire forest. Plus, these woods are not owned by vampires. You're in wolf territory, remember? While using his chance, he flipped Rosalie around and had her against the tree. Oh hell no. I lunged forward again and came up behind Emmett, wrapping my arm around his neck. It was a mistake because it's not like I could cut off blood flow or his airway. I just saw red and did the first thing I could think of. Without warning or much effort, Emmett shoved me backward so hard that I lost balance and slammed my head on a protruding rock. I felt the sharp stone cut into the back of my head and felt pure pain. I also felt blood running down my neck. I couldn't say anything, as the force made my vision blacken. I could barely hear what was being said between the two. I only heard my heart beating faster and the rush of my blood pumping to help quicken my healing process. I had to stay laying down to make sure things were healing properly because I knew if I sat up too quickly or made myself too dizzy, I would throw up. The pain was subsiding only a little bit and my vision was slowly coming back by the time I heard a wolf howl. Oh, now they come. They are going to get a stern talking to. I wanted to shake my head, but didn't want to make things worse. I opened my eyes and saw the beauty bending over me. Her words gave me the strength to want to defend her again and attempt to sit up. Are you okay, Jacob? I heard her sigh. Yeah, I'm fine, I said, sitting up slowly. While cringing in pain, I held my head feeling a headache come on. At least the blood stopped flowing. I noticed Emmett was nowhere to be found. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. He will be found and dealt with. Rosalie, I swear it. Even if I do it myself. I wanted to stand up, but I also wanted to stay near her. I remembered hearing a howl and figured Emmett would be dealt with anyway. Rosalie frowned and shook her head. Don't. I think your pack is already onto him by the sound of howling I heard. Plus the Cullens will protect me. Although, I really don't need anyone to help me, anyways. I can always take care of myself. Jacob, the reason you couldn't defeat him is because he was angry. When he gets angry, it's hard for anyone to control him. Even Carlyle had a hard time holding him. When he had his moments. I only defeated him because I was angry, too. He knew I was pissed, so he eased up. See, I'm not only a jerk to you, I could barely hear a word she was saying. Once I was able to think clearly and see straight, I saw all right. I saw that she fought so hard her bra was not doing a great job at supporting her anymore. I tried to look away, but couldn't. She enchanted me. She frowned and glanced down while asking, is something else wrong? I blushed when I'd been caught red-handed. I coughed and felt my heart rate increase again. This woman is gonna be the death of me. When I heard her let out a small noise, I knew I was about to lose it. Before I could reach out and kiss her, she stood up, fixed herself and spoke. What the hell are you trying to pull, mutt? She asked defensively. I let out a smirk, feeling so much better now. Sorry Barbie, but you were exposed and I was trying to be gentlemanly and help you realize you had to cover them up. But please, by all means. If you'd prefer to let them hang out, then that's fine with me, too. I won't mind one bit. I grinned widely and found the strength to stand, no longer feeling vulnerable. Rosalie growled and pushed me back down. Jacob, that's not okay to say, when you've imprinted on my niece. She brushed her hands together. I stood back up instantly, thankful I had another chance to confess the truth. Rosalie, about that, I began. Rosalie cut me off. All right, look, I have to get home, right now. Carlisle and Esme must be worried sick, they'll have the cavalry out looking for me. I also have to make sure everyone else is okay. After the threat. No. I need more time. She turned to run off towards the house. I had to stop her. I thought on my feet. Rosalie, wait, come and meet the other wolves. I have to go home anyway and change into regular clothes. Then you can have your dress back. Plus, the Cullens would think you're still just trying to clear your head from what happened anyway. When I noticed her gaze down again, I knew I said the right things. I thanked the spirits once more for the words to say. Okay, Jacob, this is the only time. I heard her sigh and nod. I just need one more chance. I can do this. Great, I said nervously. Nothing else better screw this up. I felt my heartbeat thumping in my chest. It felt like it was going to burst, I was so nervous. I knew that fate was keeping us together to give me the chance I needed. I was running in front of Rosalie, while keeping an ear open to make sure she was staying with me. I told her to stay CLOs in case more of my pack brothers tried to say she was violating the treaty being on our lands. It shouldn't matter anyway, she's part of the pack now. I didn't want to phase, in case others were still phased and reading my mind. They had enough on their plates without my wonderful distraction. I smirked. Also, I wanted to make sure she actually followed me. I didn't want to give her dress back, and have her give the excuse that she had all she needed and needed to go back home. I slowed down to a stop, when I felt the dress slipping off my waist. I held it up and tried to tie it tighter, until I could give it back to her. I still don't get why you wouldn't let me put on my dress, while you phased into a wolf, Rosalie said, shaking her head and then crossing her arms. Because 1, how would I know you would have come with me to meet the wolves if I gave you the dress back? And 2, the last thing I need is to be in wolf form and have my mind read right now. I smirked, gazing at her. I couldn't help but run my eyes over her figure, while she stood there looking like a model. But I quickly averted my gaze before she could say anything. She had her arms crossed over her chest, but that did more to emphasize her curves than hide them. You know, when you try to cover yourself up, it really does not help at all. You can still see a lot more than you think. I chuckled and unintentionally let out a soft growl from the back of my throat. Down, boy. I had to keep my wolf in check. Rosalie seemed to sigh. Look, Jacob. I said the words before I could stop them. I wanted to call me the name she's been calling me. When she called me Jacob, it felt more intimate than Jake. I tried to hold back a frown. I got so used to my full name coming out of her mouth that it threw me off guard. Excuse me. She held her arms tighter around her frame. I like when you call me Jacob. Bella, my family and my wolf friends call me Jake. I shrugged, hoping it wasn't that big of a deal. I just wanted us to have something that was ours. Just saying. Keep going. I grinned. Okay, anyway, Jacob, Rosalie started again. I grinned wider at her and nodded for her to continue. My wolf and I were very pleased. I might sometimes come off as an insolent, impudent bit. I held back a chuckle. All the time. But I do enjoy our bickering most times. It's whatever you need from me. Whatever. But when I choose to do something, I make sure to stick to it. I said I'd go with you, so would. Why would I need to lie? Even if I had my dress back, I'd still follow you. That's the power of the imprint. You wouldn't have come if you were fighting it. I wanted to tell her right then and there, but it was building to that. Although, I'm not sure why it had to be right now. What is so important? I gulped and glanced at her. You sure you would, Rosalie? I frowned and glanced back at the woods, wanting to get into my actual clothes. I really didn't want to tell her anything while wearing her dress. No games. Yeah, I'm positive, Rosalie replied, looking at me curiously. Okay then, wait here, I said, nodding. I walked in the direction of my change of clothes. I was luckily hidden behind a tree, but frowned when I tried to undo the knot I tied in the back. With my big fingers it was hard to loosen and I pulled a little too hard, tearing a piece of the dress. Oh, great, I scoffed at myself. Is everything okay? You don't need any help, do you? You better pray that's not my dress. I sighed and shook my head, hoping she wouldn't come back here, but realizing she could see me, I called out, no. Everything's fine. Okay, I heard her say, confused. I pulled on my cutoffs and a shirt, to not make things more awkward. Then I held the dress up to see the damage. It had a tear down the side near the bottom. I held the dress in front of me, as far as possible, and covered my face, groaning to myself. I started to walk towards her, hoping she wasn't going to be furious with me. "Rosalie, I'm so sorry." I saw her raise an eyebrow and I held the dress out to her. She put it on and noticed that everything was fine, except for the slight tear. It ran from the right upper thigh to the end of the dress. "Jacob, what did you do?" I heard her growl and I wanted nothing more than to calm her down and let her know how hot she was. Rosalie crossed her arms threateningly. "Alice is going to kill me." I was so worried she would be even more furious, so I stuttered slightly over my words. It looks much better on you. The opening down the side makes it, IGULPED, and bit my lip, not wanting her to know how turned on I was getting. But I lifted my hands to gesture to her breasts and stuttered even worse. "What is she doing to me? Those look great, too, in the dress. It all just makes the dress better." I saw her instantly feel better and more confident when she examined herself. "You think so?" She smirked and uncrossed her arms. "You don't want to know what I'm thinking." But of course my uncensored mouth spoke before I could stop the words coming out. "Yeah, it's super sexy. If we were together, I'd rip it further, take you to that tree and, N gestured to the tree behind her and clenching my fists to stop myself from taking action. Where was I? Cliff diving in winter, first day of school, changing oil in the rabbit. Sam naked, I grimaced. Well, at least that stopped me. "Okay, stop. You're done." Rosalie snapped me out of my cock-blocking thoughts. She held up both of her hands in protest. "You shouldn't be speaking like that. Someone very special is waiting for you." I haven't said anything before, but you've been making comments like that all day. You're lucky I'm in a good mood and need a confidence boost, but you really should stop. We are adding way too many secrets to our friendship, and I think this should be the last one. It's hard to keep track of them all. Plus Ness would get mad at you, Bella, and Edward would kill you. And I don't see any good from all the flirting. Jacob, however, I do thank you for trying to make me feel better. You really did help get my mind off things." "Rosalie, look, there's something I've been wanting to say to you," I said, staring at her, getting serious. "This is it, my chance." Jake," Sam called out from our right. "There you are." I let out a low growl. He knew what he was doing. "Hey man," Cullens screamed, grinning too wide. I shot him a glare and his grin toned down quite a bit. "What up, dog? Ha, see what I did there?" Quill came out chuckling. I frowned at him as well. They were ruining everything. Why is it that whenever I have something to say, I'm interrupted? I growled out, letting them know my plan and that I was angry. They will feel my rage later. All three of them looked right at Rosalie and I could tell they made her want to leave. They weren't acting very friendly and it was making her uncomfortable. Before she could run, I grabbed her arm, to keep her in place. I felt her relax and grounded her again. "Guys, this is Rosalie. Rosalie, this is Sam, Quill and Colin," I said, pointing to each one of them. They all said, "Hi," and turned to me to speak. "Jake, why are you hanging out with that leech?" Colin asked, glancing at Rosalie's form. He must have seen the tear because he blushed and just said, never mind." I clenched my fists and then quickly released them. He didn't understand the imprint yet. I just sighed and shook my head. Sam knew how tense I was getting and grabbed Colin, dragging him away from the group. I nodded my thanks at him and turned to Quill, waiting to see what he was still doing here. "Jake, the leech got away. But we're pretty sure he won't be back for a while. We are running in shifts and Colin, Sam and I are off the clock now. You should meet us at Emily's. Embry, Seth and Leah are there now eating freshly baked cookies before they patrol. You better get there now, if you have hopes of getting any. And Rosalie, you can come too, if you want," Quill said, trying not to look at her. I was thankful at both the respect he was showing and the mention of food. I was getting hungry, but I needed tea's time with Rosalie while I still had it. I grinned at Quill for being better than earlier. Sam must have talked to him. I looked to my imprint to see how she would respond to Quill's offer. "Oh, that's okay. I really don't think I should. I have to get home now." I should update the family on what's been happening tonight. But thanks anyway, she said. Jacob, I'll see you. She held out her hand to M.E. as if to say goodbye and then turned to leave. I understand that meeting the pack could be a lot and 3 at once was enough, let alone 2 others earlier today. But I was still holding back my disappointment for her decision. Quill, I'll meet you at the house later, I gotta do something real quick. Save me some cookies, I shouted behind me, while I ran to catch up to her. I nearly walked into her as I closed the distance between us. I didn't realize she was walking at a slower pace. Jacob, what are you doing? I can handle myself. It's really time for me to get back home. I've met and mad. A fool out of myself in front of your friends, please spare me some dignity. I know how to get home. I've done it many times. I heard the frustration in her voice, but I still had to try and finish our conversation. I know, but I have something important to tell you, before you go. I understand you need to leave, but this is very important. I grabbed her arm and twisted her around. I took a deep breath to speak, but she cut me off. Jacob, seriously, I don't have time, I really have to go. She tried to pull out of my grasp, but I was stronger. I wasn't going to force this conversation on her if she didn't want to hear it. That thought made me instantly frustrated. She should want to stay and hear me out. I blew out a puff of air and let go of her. Fine, whatever, leave. I ran off into the woods. Before I could stop myself I phased. I was running and cursing in my thoughts. I would imprint on such a stubborn woman. I growled and ran harder and faster. I was getting my heart rate up and feeling the wind through my fur. I ran for about 10 minutes before finally calming myself down. When Embry, Leah and Seth phased to patrol, I told them to wait at the house, I'd be there soon to talk. I made my way to Emily's and right inside the tree line, I phased and pulled on new cutoffs. I sighed and rubbed my hand over my face, then walked into the house. Hey Emily, I grumbled, making my way to the table in the kitchen. I knew the rest of the pack were in the living room, but I needed a minute. Emily grinned and handed me a fresh batch of cookies on a plate. Everything okay, Jake? Trouble on the other side? Yeah, you could say that. I stuffed my face with a couple of cookies. Emily lowered her voice and stepped closer. I have only heard bits and pieces of what's going on, but hang on to hope, Jake. Some women are more challenging than others. Emily glanced over at the living room towards Leah, who was wrestling the remote from Seth. That doesn't make them any less deserving of love and attention. Sometimes they put up a front because they've been hurt so much that. She was going to say more, but Sam came in and wrapped his arm around Emily, kissing the side of her head. I thought for a moment and responded. Thank you, Emily, I said softly. Rosalie was hurting. She was married to a complete idiot who took her for granted. Now she had to put herself together again. At least she won't have to do that part alone if she doesn't want to. I could already tell that her shell was starting to soften. That was good news for me. Sam, I called out. He looked over at me with questions in his eyes. We need to hold a quick meeting. Whoever is not here, get them here. It'll be 10-15 minutes tops. Sam nodded his head, knowing at least one of the topics I had in mind. I would have called myself, but I needed to make sure the rest of the pack stayed to hear what I had to say. I saw Leah make eye contact with me and I nodded. She smiled and sat back on the couch, not caring about the TV anymore. Seth and Embry were standing to get ready to leave, but I stopped them again and made them sit down. You can patrol when this small meeting is over. They sighed in relief and waited for everyone else. 20 minutes later, the entire pack was in the living room. Leah, Seth, and Quill were on the couch. Embry and Jared took the loveseat next to the couch, facing the TV. Paul and Sam took a couple of chairs. Brady and Colin were spread out on the floor, loving the amount of room they had. I decided to remain standing to see everyone and to make sure they all heard me. I took a deep breath. I know this is an unofficial pack meet, but there are a few changes that need to be stated. I figured we could have everyone on the same page and it shouldn't take long. I looked at the pack and everyone seemed to be listening. Normally 1 or 2 of them would goof off, due to having meetings every month, but because this was unannounced, they knew it had to be serious. Right, first up on the agenda. There have been a few of us who have been able to control our wolves, even when we get extremely angry. There are times that we feel like exploding and we do. Over to master the skill of feeling it come on and stop ourselves is challenging in itself. I have decided to have one of our own go out into the world and experience life, without having the wolf hold them back. Only when we know it can be done, can we have others trying this out. I noticed the excitement in the wolves. They were looking around to see who would be the lucky wolf. I nodded to Leah and she stood up. Sam was about to oppose, but I held my hand up. Hold your arguments. I spoke to the council and they gave their approval. With everything Leah has endured and the way she controls her wolf. She is ready. I know it, she knows it, the council knows it. She can do this. Leah walked up to me and hugged me with tears in her eyes. Thank you, she said almost too quietly. I could barely hear her. I hope she gets her spark back. I nodded to her and she sat back down. Seth grinned at her and hugged her. Others were nodding to her. Moving on because I am taking no rejections about that. Speaking mainly to Sam who looked irked. Next on the agenda, leave my imprint alone. I glared at Paul, Quill and Colin in particular. If I notice she gets uncomfortable because of something you do or say one more time, it'll be the last thing you ever do, am I clear? But, Paul was about to argue, until I stepped forward and clenched my fists. Never mind. That's what I thought. I cracked my fingers and stepped back in place. We haven't been patrolling as often as we should. We let an intruder. You mean Leech? Embry chuckled and immediately stopped after receiving a death glare from me and worried looks from others. Patrols have been about 4 hours twice a day every few days. We need to have more patrols consistently going. To protect our people and land. Groans were sounded throughout the pack. School is extremely important, which is why I also talked with the council about allowing pack members to have the option for having school online. This way their work can be done on their own time when they aren't patrolling. More of the pack perked up interested. That means no slacking off or you will be forced to go to school. The younger wolves grinned. An ideal patrol schedule would have 2 wolves patrolling at the same time. However, instead of spending extra time phased for passing on information to the new shifts, I'm thinking of changing the shifts to being more similar like this. Shift 1 12 a.m. 6 a.m. Shift 2 3 a.m. 9 a.m. Shift 3 6 a.m. 12 p.m. Shift 4 9 a.m. 3 p.m. Shift 5 12 p.m. 6 p.m. Shift 6 3 p.m. 9 p.m. Shift 7 6 p.m. 12 a.m. Shift 8 9 p.m. 3 a.m. The 8 shifts would be rotated so those patrolling that day would patrol for 6 hours, and then leave you 18 hours for school, work, sleep, eating, and other activities. This saves time to recap for the next wolf to phase in. Since it would be the middle of another wolf's shift, I looked around and was glad to see that everyone seemed on board. As always, if you need a day off, just okay it with another pack brother to take your shift. But make sure you don't leave any wolf by themselves. Everyone nodded along. Since there are 9 of us, excluding Leah for the time being, there are days we would have for ourselves since there are only 8 shifts per day. I was pleased that everyone was taking things so well. This will go into effect in a couple of days, so wait for the announcement. I chuckled as everyone seemed to clap and get excited. All right, now back down to the earlier business. What happened to him? I growled, hating to bring him up. When the meeting was going so well, Sam decided to speak up. We were on his tail. But it was like he was playing with us. I don't know how he got so fast, but he slipped through our fingers. He went to the other side of the beach and dove off in the ocean. It was like he knew our plan all along. I thought for a moment. We have no leads. None that we could find right now, Quill said. We are keeping an eye and ear open. I nodded with a frown. I felt an immediate chill run down my spine and shivered. Something isn't right. The pack was discussing what was happening and giving as many details as possible. I was still zoned out when the phone rang. I snapped out of it as Emily said it was for me. I stepped towards the kitchen, ignoring the rest of the conversation in the living room. I grabbed the phone. Hello, Jake, Bella asked, concerned. What's wrong, Bella? What's happening? How do you know something? I feel it, Bella. Something is wrong. Tell me what it is. I was getting frustrated. I needed to know what to tell the pack. I was holding myself back from running to Rosalie right now. Oh, right. Sorry, I'm still in shock. I waited a few more seconds. If she doesn't spit it out soon, I was going to lose it. There is Emmett, her coven, who is threatening to come and attack us. A female leader says Emmett belongs to her and that Rosalie was stealing him. My fists clenching, and I let out deep breaths to control myself from passing right then and there. She said she would kill her. Jake, she said she would take us all down. We are asking you, begging you to help. Of course we're going to fight. There's no question. Even if no other wolf fights, I will be there. I'm coming over now. Before Bella could answer, I hung up and explained the situation. The rest of the wolves nodded that they would help. Even Leah gave a knowing look. She would come back to help if she was needed. She would do that for me, since I was letting her go for her. I told Leah, Seth and Embry to start their patrol, and I took off towards the forest. I made sure to tie my cutoffs around my ankle, phased, and then ran off towards my imprint. No one threatens her and gets away with it. I was furious, but tried to keep a clear head for what I was about to walk upon. I was grateful for Leah, Seth, and Embry's thoughts to be strictly on patrolling, at least until I phased back. As I approached the Cullen house, I heard Edward before I saw him and rolled my eyes. I phased back and quickly put on my cutoffs, before showing myself. Walking up to the house, I saw Rosalie in the window. Just as quickly as I saw her, she was gone. I hope she's coming down here. I did my best to ignore Edward walking towards me with anger and focused on approaching the beauty who was constantly flooding my thoughts. Jacob. Yo. Edward began. I held back a growl, knowing he could read my thoughts. Edward, stop, Bella said, covering his mouth. I thanked her quietly, as she gave me a side hug. She then pulled me towards the house. Edward, Bella and I stopped when we saw Rosalie watching us. She looked so fragile, even though I knew she wanted to look far from it. She shouldn't have to keep it all in. Edward must have read my thoughts, because he immediately said, Jacob, go straight into the house now. Both Rosalie and I turned to glare at him. Don't even think. Like you have authority to tell me what to do. I ignored his words and walked up to her, hugging her tight to let her know I was here. She didn't have to do this alone. I'll get them all, I swear it, Rosalie. She felt so perfect in my arms, I didn't want to let her go. Thank you, but I don't need your help. She pushed me away to distance herself, then walked into the house. I followed closely behind her, not wanting to leave her for a minute. Oh, how I want to wrap my arms around her again. I heard Edward let out a pitiful growl. I watched as she sat on the couch as we all surrounded her. I wished we were alone so she could finally understand the strong connection between us. I take it Edward knew, since he was acting like a prick. And if he knew, others probably knew, which made me wonder how Rosalie didn't find out yet. I was thankful they were giving me time to say something. What? She asked, frowning. Why are you all looking at me? Honestly, I'm not worried. If anything, I'm more annoyed. I can handle some chick, I've done much worse on my own. I was curious what she meant, but I knew in time I would find out. It's not that it's. I stood up. I guess I could say it in front of everyone. They knew anyway. Nothing, Rose. Edward cut me off and narrowed his eyes towards me. I glared back. Don't you dare get in the way. Before I could speak further, Carlyle spoke out to end the tension. Okay, everyone. We may need to have all the help we can get. The wolves may need to help us fight again. That is, if they want to. Or if Jacob can even convince them. Now we know that there's this other coven coming and has been newly created, or so we think. I don't know how much we can learn of them. Or if this female leader even knows what she's doing. However, we cannot underestimate her. We need to be as prepared as possible, so we can gain control and throw them like we did with the Volturi years ago. That's true, we shouldn't wait until they get close either. I don't want them damaging the house. I just put up new decorations and they are not ruining them. So we should plan a family trip and hopefully lead them away from our house, Alice said as a matter of factly. I rolled my eyes and let out a small chuckle. Jasper chuckled and nodded. That's my little pixie, always thinking of our stuff. He kissed her nose and hugged her, keeping an arm around her. Well, of course, Alice smiled. Everything needs to remain in place. I don't need anyone protecting me. How many times do I have to say this? If I want to fight her, Then let me do it alone, Rosalie began to say, before I interrupted her. Hell no. Don't be stupid. Bella told me that there's going to be more than one bloodsucker there. I gave a low growl. I was so mad I couldn't control my language. I saw Rosalie glance at me and I gave her an innocent smile. It didn't last long as the front door swung open instantly. Jakey, Renesmee came in, followed by Esme. I held back a cringe and let out a small smile. Sorry we're late, Esme said, carrying many bags of what looked like clothes. When I took her shopping, we couldn't just go to one mall. She really wanted to look at and buy everything. I had to stop her when the last mall was closing. What has been happening? Esme finally took note of the serious tone in the room. She paused and took a step back. Carlyle stood up and helped take some bags from her, guiding her to another room to talk. Esme followed him and left us downstairs. I held back a sigh. Hey Nessie. I then looked at Rosalie, trying to convey silently that I wanted to talk to her. No, I needed to talk to her. But I didn't want to be rude, so I smiled at Nessie. I was hoping she'd figure out that our pull was non-existent and that she wanted me around, like Bella did. What can I say? I'm a great friend. I heard Edward scoff softly so no one else could hear him. How are you? Renesmee looked mature for her age. She grew fast enough that at 13, she looked 18. Although some girls do that purposefully, Nessie did not. It made me slighted. Why uncomfortable? Because I knew that if she wasn't catching on to what was going on around her, I would have to be the one to explain things. Really, it was Brady who should be. Wait, she asked me a question, answer. I'm good, and how about you, sweetie? I asked, poking her side. It was a habit and one I should probably break. Nessie giggled and then said, I'm perfect. I missed you. I nodded, while she smiled and kissed my cheek. You need to come over more, Jake. The last time I saw you was almost a week ago. I'm planning on coming over more. That's the plan. I really want to. We'll see how things play out. I smiled at her and frowned when I noticed Rosalie leave the room. Excuse me, I said, stepping around Nessie and heading into the kitchen. I was stepping into the kitchen when I noticed Rosalie pouring a glass of water. I thought vampires didn't drink anything besides blood. Hey, Rose, you okay? I stepped closer to her and saw her jump slightly in surprise. I guess she was zoned out. Sure, I'm fine, dog. She turned away from me and held out the glass of water. For me, oh, that makes more sense. I chuckled to myself and took the glass. I took a sip and placed it down. Quote, you don't look fine. I took a deep breath. Hey, earlier, I sighed when I noticed we weren't alone anymore. One of these times I'm going to lose it. Jake, why don't you take Rose to the mountains tomorrow? I'll make sure the Cullen men keep a close eye on you in case something unexpected happens. I'll stay here with Ness, that way you and Rosalie can talk. Bella winked at me. I gave her a look that said, what do you think I was just doing? Edward stepped into the kitchen with Renesmee and said, screw that. I don't want that thing anywhere near her. She isn't going anywhere alone with him. I heard Rosalie begin to growl at him. I thought he would know better than to tell her what to do. Hell, I learned I couldn't the first time I met her. Yeah, I agree with Daddy. If anyone should go with Jakey, it should be me. I miss having him around and I need more Jake time. Renesmee smiled at me and I felt nauseous. The last thing I needed or wanted was alone time with Nessie. I need Brady to explain things. Bella, I agree with keeping the other coven away from the house. I will go with someone who can keep me safe. I don't mind who goes with me, but I don't think all the guys going are really necessary. A couple should be enough to warn others, if needed, that's right. Everyone doesn't need to go. Rose, you know what happened tonight. Having Jake with you will put the rest of his pack at his side. And the more the merrier. And it's best if everyone stays together. I was trying to figure out Bella's intentions. Did she want me alone with her? Or did she want to keep a close eye on us? Either way, I could have my pack. Go with us, but stay away. I grinned. That would be perfect, but it's up to Jake, really. Bella nodded towards me in question. I smiled at her. So smart. I think I should go with Rosalie to protect her, not that she needs it, but for support. Everyone else can be at least a mile away, that way if something happens, everyone can ambush this new coven. I love this idea, but Jakey, What if I need support? I don't want to be alone. Renesmee frowned slightly and then grabbed my hand to squeeze it, letting me know she was still here. I can go too, right? The three of us will be better than two. Nope, I think not. You'd be much safer far away from us. Nessie, you will be with your parents. It isn't safe, plus your aunt is the one that they're after. You should stay away. I guess Edward was taking in everyone's thoughts and creating his own plan. I almost smacked the smirk off his face. No, that's perfect. Edward clapped his hands together. We really shouldn't be split up in twos. The more of us, the less chance there is of anyone getting hurt. Ness will go with you too. If you or anyone else has a problem with this idea, too bad. 3 is better than 1. So no harm, no foul. Edward sighed in relief. And putting your daughter in danger is great. How? I scoffed as Edward glared at me. Before he could speak, Bella did. Edward, she is 13. She hasn't even trained for battle. She shouldn't be put in direct danger like that. Bella argued. Stop acting like a. I nodded with Bella's works, but as always Nessie only heard what Nessie wanted to hear. Yay, I like Dad's plan, Renesmee responded, ignoring her mother. Sleepover with Aunt Rose and Jakey. I will start packing. Renesmee jumped up and kissed my cheek before I could comment further. She then ran upstairs grinning ear to ear. That's great, just fine. I saw Rosalie walk out of the room in a huff. Before I could go after her, Edward whispered in a low growl. Don't even think about it. Are you out of your mind? You've read my thoughts. You know my feelings are real. I know nothing. You've kept your thoughts to yourself for a while now. How do I know? What's real or what you're forcing me to believe? Edward stepped towards me. I believe you're a real pain in the ass. I stepped closer, getting in his face. Bella stepped between us. Guys, stop arguing. This does nothing to help the situation. Edward, stop provoking him. Jacob, you know how hot-headed my husband can be. Yeah, that's ironic. Since I'm the hot one, remember. I growled, taking a step back. Before Edward could respond, Bella spoke. Edward, we need to practice our fighting with others again. We will talk about Ness later. Finally the rest of the family came into the room, waiting for the heated conversation to die down. They then made their way outside to discuss strategy. I shook my head and clenched the granite counter tightly. I calmed myself down with deep breaths before I remembered Rosalie was somewhere in the house. I could hear her faintly talking, but as I started to approach her room, the door opened and shut as Ness left the room upset and stomping. What was going on? What were they talking about? Renesmee looked at me and smiled wide. Jakey, I need to talk to you. She whispered so low I could barely hear her. I squinted my eyes together to make sense of her secretive nature, but nodded and told her it would be in a little bit. I needed to talk to Aunt Rose. Ness frowned for a split second, but it quickly turned into a wide smile again and she nodded. I softly knocked on Rosalie's door, took a deep breath and stepped into her room without waiting for permission. I would have waited if the situation was less dire. I shut the door behind me as she said, Jacob, get out. She was laying down and turned her body around to face the wall. I didn't listen and instead stepped closer to her. Rosalie, I have to talk to you. I was really nervous. I'm surprised I wasn't shaking. If it's about sex, go ask someone else. She said angrily. Wait, what? I responded, holding my breath. That's not what How was she already thinking? How could she know we haven't even kissed? Ness wants to know what it is too. Go ask anyone else, but leave me out of it. Now I felt totally nauseous and almost gagged. She wants sex. With me. Already. She's 13. I gulped and did everything in my power to not pass out. Edward picks the pieces he wants out of my head, but doesn't he know what his daughter thinks? I know that. She started to growl. Now get out. We have a long day tomorrow, and I need some time to think. That growl means you feel something, you feel jealous and don't know it. Why can't I say what I think? Because I'm better at showing my feelings. I came to the edge of her bed and slowly ran my fingertips down the length of her body. I brushed her hip and felt her tense up. Well, she wasn't stopping me. Rosalie, I said her name softly. I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying right here. I continued to whisper, and ran my hand up the length of her side. I brushed the side of my breast and she instantly stood up. She moved away from my touch and I grinned. Jacob, please don't do this, I can't. We're making progress. Not calling me names. Check. Not slapping me. Check. Not running out of the room. Check. I stepped closer, pushing my luck. I lifted her chin to be able to look in her eyes. My thumb pulled her lower lip down, making her eyes close. I leaned in to kiss her, since she wasn't pulling away, but heard footsteps outside the door. I cursed my luck and whispered, "Meet me on the cliffs at midnight, tonight I'll explain everything. We need to talk." We pulled apart, the same time the bedroom door opened. "Oh, I get it. You tell Jakey what sex is. Now I know who you like more." Renesmee grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the room, leading us downstairs and out the front door. "Nessie, what's this about?" I was in the middle of talking with. It looked like more than talking. Ness frowned and continued to pull me towards the woods. I tried to pull her back. "Ness, look at me. What's going on? Why are you acting like this?" I was slightly nervous that it had to do with what Rose told me in her room. Nessie finally stopped just inside the border and looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I feel like you don't like me anymore." She let a few tears fall. "You're never around and it's like." I frowned and pulled her into a hug. The last thing I wanted to do was upset Bella's daughter. "Nessie, I needed some alone time to think. I promise I'll be around more now." Ness seemed to cheer up. "Can we keep walking?" I felt like I was getting whiplash, but as long as she was calm now, I didn't see what harm walking could cause. I nodded and gestured for her to lead the way. After a minute of silence, Renesmee spoke up. "Jakey?" she asked calmly. "Yeah, sweetie," I replied, glancing at the trees and enjoying the smell of nature. "When are we going to get married? Do you think we are ready for the next step?" Renesmee got all excited. I frowned. Where did this come from? "Nessie, we aren't even dating right now. And I don't know if we can ever get married. But if we don't get married, then we're not in love. And if we're not in love, we can't have sex. And if we can't have sex, then we can't become closer." What? Is this what Rosalie was talking about? "Nessie, we'll always be close." I ignored the sex part, not wanting to draw attention to it. "I'm in your life for the long haul. But I don't think the next step is something we can take. I'm sorry, you'll understand someday soon." I hesitated, not wanting to say too much. Brady wanted to break the news. I shouldn't have to suffer like this. "What? Why can't we date and then get married? You don't want to marry me. I thought you loved me. We are meant to be together." "Oh no." More whiplash. "I do love you. But I can't talk about this now. It's not the right time. I promise everything will make sense soon, you just have to be patient." "Brady, I'm going to kill you. When will the right time be? You know I'm not patient, I grow quicker than I age." "It's annoying." Renesmee persisted. "Soon, sweetie, I promise. As soon as I can phase, I'm going to find him and bring him here." "Okay, but can I ask you one more thing before we head home?" Renesmee asked innocently. I was a little intimidated and nervous. "All right, one more question and we go straight home." I wanted to be where Rose was. I frowned as Nessie stepped closer to me. I backed away, until I backed into a tree. I frowned deeper. "What are you doing?" "Well, I was just wondering, since you're more grown than I am, if you know what sex is." Renesmee batted her eyes at me. The blood drained from my face and I froze. I couldn't say anything because I knew once I opened my mouth I would either throw up or yell at her. Eventually my thoughts came back to me and I moved forward. "You shouldn't even know what that is and I am not the one you should be having this conversation with." "I am certainly not the one." Nessie used my shocked state against me and pushed me back against the tree. I was extremely nervous and wanted to awaken from this nightmare. "But Jakey, you said you would answer one more question and I wanted to ask that one." Renesmee frowned. She started kissing my neck, and pressed her body against mine. Renesmee reached around me and squatted down to grab something. Once she stood back up, before I could run off, she used two ends of rope to tie me to the tree. I did everything I could to try and break free, but it was no use. I wanted to phase, but the last thing I wanted to do was hurt Nessie by doing so. I was suddenly frustrated and angry. "Stop this. What are you doing, Nessie? Untie me, Nessie, now. This is not how you treat anyone." When I got out, I would never be alone with her again. Where were the Cullens? Didn't they notice their daughter missing? I growled in thought. She ripped off a piece of duct tape with her teeth and covered my mouth. I'm sorry, Jakey, but if you aren't going to explain things to me, I guess I will have to figure things out myself. What the hell? This is rape. I wanted to say this to her, but now I couldn't. Renesmee started to smile and backed away from me. She though, for a minute and then began pulling her shirt over her head. I turned my face away and closed my eyes. I'm not doing this, wake the hell up. I heard Renesmee removing more clothes. You know, while shopping with Esme, I snuck in clothes that I wanted to wear for you. The one woman who I overheard talking said that her husband would love this. Grandma Esme was trying to convince me that I was too young. But I told her that age was just a number and I looked more grown up than she felt I was. Don't you agree? I heard her step closer, since I wasn't looking at her. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. So I remained in the same position. You don't have to be embarrassed, it's normal, Jakey. Renesmee started to unbutton my pants and slide them down my legs when I growled. My wolf was coming forward and he wasn't pleased. Please, Edward, hear this. Get here now. I berated myself for not having more clothes on. Why couldn't I have put on a shirt? Not that it mattered anyway, it'd probably be off by now. Even standing in front of my pack members in the nude, I've never felt more naked than being in front of Ness in my boxers. I hated every single minute. Ness sighed contentedly as she ran her hands over my chest. I was disgusted with her and myself. I let out a growl as her hands trailed lower down my abs and hoped it was loud enough for anyone to hear. Where did she learn this from? What has she been watching or reading? I love you, Jakey. I don't like how it feels like we've grown apart and not been together as much. We have to remember that we are getting married, so we need us time. That is what I want, to be loved. I miss feeling loved. I don't understand what happened. What happened is we were never, us, and we are never getting married. I wanted to open my mouth so badly. Just as Nessie touched the band of my boxers to pull them down, I heard a noise and let out a breath of relief. Finally, took you long enough. Edward immediately grabbed Ness from behind and pulled her away from me. Unfortunately, my boxers came down at the same time, and I flashed Edward for a split second. He cursed, quickly pulled them up, not touching me, and held Nessie away from me. He shook his head in disgust. That makes two of us. I heard a noise to my left and glanced over to see Rosalie being held by Alice and Esme. They were walking her back towards the house. What are they doing here? Did she see? Being brought back to the present, Edward held Nessie, as she shouted, I love him, Daddy. Let me be with him. She was handed over to Bella and pulled away from the scene. I could still hear her screaming, even as Edward untied me. I heard Bella saying how grounded she was and I had to agree. Just because she looked like an adult, doesn't mean she was acting like one. She was still a child. Just as I became free, I quickly threw on my cutoffs again. What are you doing? Edward hissed in my face. What am I doing? What are you doing? Trying to feel me up. Believe me, it is real and it does work just fine. I smirked. Edward growled. You stay away from my family. Like hell I will. You know I can't do that. I will say that I never want to be alone with Nessie again. I didn't want this. I want her. Edward sighed in frustration and shook his head. You may be right. I almost missed his words, since he whispered so softly. I held back a grin. I'm sorry, what? I couldn't hear you. I'm not repeating myself. Edward stomped off towards the house. I followed behind him, waiting for anything else to be said. Nothing was, so I continued. So how was training? I would have to try to make him an acquaintance if we were going to remain neutral. Edward sighed again. It was fine. Only a little training was needed. I nodded, but he continued before I could speak. Renesmee is going through big changes. You don't need to tell me that. Edward glared at me and I held up my hands as a defense. Bella and I talked. She will be grounded for at least a month. She won't be going with you and Rosalie. I couldn't hold back my grin, but froze when I heard Rosalie's name. Hey, speaking of Rose, why was she in the woods? Did she come looking for me too? I held my breath for the answer. Edward paused and turned around. With your wolf hearing, you really don't know. Now I was confused. Believe what you want, but we don't have superpowers. I was a little tied up at that moment. Edward winced. Don't remind me she was following your trail, but was found by Emmett. What? Just as I was going to take off to find that beast or be with Rosalie, I didn't know which one. But Edward stopped me. Carlyle and Jasper took care of him. They ambushed him and are executing him as we speak. Although my wolf wanted to be 100% certain it was done. My wolf also needed to check on Rosalie. I need to make sure she's okay. That's the second time in less than 24 hours. Edward read my thoughts and shook his head, still not understanding everything fully. He continued the path to the house, while I followed. As we neared the house, we could hear the conversation inside and it put Edward even more on edge. Edward walked in first growling. The last thing I wanted to see is my daughter all over some boy. I am never going to get that out of my head now. I let out a chuckle. I followed him inside, shaking my head. That makes two of us. I would take it back if I could. Believe me, I was suddenly aware of my imprint and froze seeing her sitting on the couch. Rosalie, can we talk? I asked quietly. I had to tell her the truth now. I knew Edward was aware of what I was going to say because he was about to protest. But Bella came inside just in time and asked him to follow her home. What about the fight tomorrow, Bella? Shouldn't we prepare with everyone for tomorrow? We still need to practice a little more. Edward was pleading towards her. Love, I really don't want to have this conversation with Ness alone. We need to be on the same page. I need you by my side. Quote, but Bella gave him a look, and he stopped talking. I nodded towards Bella in appreciation. It's okay, Edward, I'll make sure the wolves will help us fight. We can handle it. We'll stay there however long it takes, I said, not taking my eyes off Rosalie. All right, Jacob, you'd better hope the wolves show up, Edward sighed threateningly. Oh, I know they will, Jacob stated as a matter of factly. I already talked with them about it. The Cullens left pair by pair until it was just Rosalie and I. The tension was so thick, she seemed to want to leave the room to get away from it. I reached up and brushed her arm as she walked up the stairs. She stepped into her room and tried to shut the door, but I came in and sat on her bed. I wasn't leaving until she heard the truth. Jacob, I could tell she wanted me out of the room as much as she wanted me there. Rosalie, I've been trying to tell you something all night. When you left me, I was able to clear my head. I'm tired of being interrupted, and now that we are finally alone, I need you to understand exactly what's going on and what happened. If I don't, I'll go crazy. She glanced at me and sat down beside me. Okay, what is it? I had her full attention now. Here goes nothing. I need you to know the truth. I took a deep breath. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything, but I didn't imprint on Nessie. Before she could speak, I touched one of her hands. She was too stunned to interrupt me. I mean, this sounds ridiculous. I can't tell you how long I've spent trying to figure this all out. I still don't understand everything. I looked at her, and I could tell she was trying to read my eyes to see if I was lying. I wasn't. When I look at Nessie, I feel protective over her. Yes, but she's my best friend's daughter. I will always feel love and protectiveness over them. But with you I can't explain it. I look at you and want to be whatever you want me to be. Faye, Ellings have been shifted because of everything that has been happening. I was the one person you could tease and fight with, and I felt important and needed in that way. So we continued to bicker, even to the point of anger. But Rosalie, with what's going on, I feel ready to be anything else you need. Whether that's a friend, best friend, lover, mate, maybe wife someday. She looked away. No, I can't lose her attention. I continued quickly. I'm not proposing now. You deserve more than this, but you need to know that I think I'm falling for you. Ever since that small moment we had either on the cliffs where we could be just us teasing one another and without anger, please believe me. Rosalie looked insulted and then furious. She dropped my hand, stood up and took a few steps away from me. I was crushed. This isn't how I expected this to go. You don't know anything about me. We've been friends for 5 minutes and you think you feel this way. She walked over to the window. I didn't realize our teasing friendship had gotten this far. I can't handle being lied to or more stupid pranks. It's not funny. And I'm not in the mood. I felt a knife in my heart. She thinks I'm lying to her. Rosalie, How can you say that? I stood up and walked up behind her. I wrapped my arms around her. I've known you for almost as long as you've been in Bella's life. We've fought side by side. Had our fights and have teased each other. I may not know you perfectly, but I'd like to get to. And if you would rather we continue teasing each other and nothing more, I will deal with that. It's whatever you want me to be. Not what I necessarily want to be. But I did feel obligated to finally tell you the truth that I do love you. No matter what that means to you. I can't believe I just said the L word. I'm messing this up. She turned around to gently shove me. No, you don't understand what I've been through these past few hours. My life was fine 1 minute, and all of a sudden it fell apart. I just want to be alone. I deserve to be alone. No. You don't have to do this alone. Rosalie, please, if what you say is true and you really do love me, just leave me be right now. I was messing this up because I still couldn't say everything. That's it. I'm getting Brady. I walked towards the door, looked at her one more time and left the room. I ran down the stairs. We're doing this now. I growled and rushed out the house, threw off my cutoffs and phased immediately. Who's phased? I needed to know who I could ask for Brady's location. Me, Colin replied. Ditto. Jared responded. Present. Brady seemed all too happy. Brady, get your wolf butt to the Cullens now. I stated. That was too easy. Brady froze and then I could see that he was running towards me. See, Olin and Jared were asking what that was about, but I phased back and put on my cutoffs again. They would find out next time we were phased anyway. I waited by the edge of the woods. I saw Brady come out in another pair of cutoffs and I growled. What's up? He asked. Don't what's up me. I told Rose the truth and now things are falling apart because I can't tell her everything. You are going to tell Ness the truth, now. But, he saw my glare and nodded. But instead of being nervous, he was getting excited. I'm gonna tell her. We both heard shouting from the house and glanced at each other. We walked to the back door and I made a gesture for Brady to stay there. I will bring her out to you. We don't need more chaos in there. I pointed to the house. Brady agreed. I heard a lap and held myself back from running into the scene after hearing that Ness hit Rosalie. I clenched my fists. She doesn't know the truth. She will know the truth. I took a deep breath and unclenched my hands. I flinched when I heard Bella say, Ness, stop it this instant. We have enough to deal with right now. It's not Jacob's fault he didn't really imprint on you. I didn't want her to hurt, just know the truth. I frowned at Ness' words. But I love him. It's not fair. He told me just the other day that he cared for me and would always protect me from being hurt. Well, I'm hurt now. I meant physically hurt, not emotionally hurt. I stepped into the house after that. Nessie, I saw Rosalie had on a new dress. She's so beautiful. No, focus. I have to talk to you. If that's okay with you, Edward. I glanced at him. Brady is out there. He's going to clear things up. I swear this is serious. Edward nodded his approval. Thank you, Jakey. Tears were flooding Nessie's eyes and she ran up to me. I was ready for a hug, but flinched at the idea of her touching me again. It was a good thing I flinched too because she punched me instead, anyway. She then wrapped her arms around me and I instantly held her at arm's length. I gestured for Bella to follow us, took Nessie's hand and led her outside. I pulled her in front of Brady and saw her immediately blush. Hi Ness. Brady was now acting shy. Come on. Hi, Brady. Ness smiled shyly. All right, what's up? Bella asked, knowing full well what was happening, but wanted things to quicken. I sent her a thankful smile. Brady cleared his throat. Ness, you may have noticed a difference in your pull to Jacob. How did you know that? Nessie asked curiously. Bella knew what was going to be said and quickly walked in the house to get Edward. Well, do you feel anything different around me? Brady asked, stepping forward. I try not to. I don't want to hurt Jake. I held up my hands and responded, I'm not hurt, believe me. Edward followed Bella out the back door. He groaned after reading everyone's thoughts. I told you. I thought in his direction. He shook his head. The pull towards me is because I imprinted on you. Brady blurted out. Nessie scrunched her face in confusion and pointed at me. But Jake. I sighed. It was a misunderstanding, Ness. I can't get into everything now, but maybe Brady can. Long story short, I imprinted on Rosalie. Please don't be mad. But Renesmee covered her face embarrassedly and shook her head. I'm so sorry. She looked at me and then Brady. It's all right. Why? What happened? Brady asked. And Aunt Rose. She was about to cry, but Brady stepped in and hugged her. Go apologize and then we can talk some more, okay? Bella offered. I had just made my way in the house, N. Carlisle was telling Rosalie that I wanted to talk with her. They both turned to look at me, when Nessie came barreling past me, crying. She ran up to Rose and I almost ran up to stop her from any threats. But Ness wrapped her arms around her instead. It took Rosalie a second, but she hugged her back. I'm so sorry, Aunt Rose. I hate that I took my anger out on you. I was and still am confused with everything that has happened. If I knew things would change in the blink of an eye, I would have tried to be more prepared for it. It's more whiplash. Will it ever end? I heard Edward chuckle, into a cough and then subtly shake his head. Ness, I understand Ness. I love you, please know that. I'm upset that your reaction was to slap me, but I know how you feel. I will always love you, but I have to ask. What led to your reaction? I opened my mouth slightly, taking in the caring person in front of me. Before Ness' birth, I wouldn't believe she was the same woman. That's because she wasn't the same and you know it. I love you so much. Renesmee pulled away, and, well, I was very hurt. I really thought I had to be in love with Jakey, so I tried really hard to be loved by him. But, I learned that there are different types of love. The one love I was feeling a few days ago wasn't pointed towards Jakey like I thought. Renesmee smiled, while Rose looked confused. Looks like I'll have more explaining to do. I have to go home now, but I'm happy that you and I are okay. Rosalie responded. Wait a second, what do you mean? Who are your feelings towards? I glanced at Edward and Bella, who were both smiling. Edward gestured for me to tell her. I was thankful that he understood the mix-up. I stepped forward. Well, I think I can explain. I took a deep breath, while Edward, Ella and Nessie took off with Brady to continue their talk. Esme and Carlisle also left the room to give us privacy. I cleared my throat. A few days ago, I was goofing off with a couple of guys in our pack. We had just finished our patrol, when Nessie showed up to bring us all snacks. Although all of us would scarf down anything you put in front of us, I noticed that Brady was not eating. He was staring at Nessie and I knew instantly what had happened. I took this time to step forward and make sure I wasn't losing her. You see, Brady was frozen and it seemed as if it were only him and Nessie in the room together. She didn't know it at the time, but that day she felt happier and more. I was nervous and cleared my throat again. She wanted to show her affection more. She assumed it was because of me, that her feelings of affection had changed. Because I was there, so it must have been the explanation. Soon after Brady bounced back to himself and said hi, Nessie ran out the door and came back home. Everyone had assumed she was still my imprint, so Brady was even more confused. However, he was the one who truly imprinted on her. I can see it in his mind when we're on patrol and in the words he speaks. He's head over heels for her and now he wants her around all the time. He wanted me to use today to confess everything to everyone. But as you can see, nothing went as planned. I was relieved that the hard part was over. I actually just called for him to come over, when I left your room, to help explain everything to Edward, Bella and Nessie. He should be with them now. Oh, I see. So, when you were with your pack mates, was it just Brady and Ness you talked about? Or was more information revealed? She looked away. I tilted my head confused and raised an eyebrow. Like what? Other information like other imprinters and imprints? She nodded slowly. I took another deep breath, took her hand and led us to the couch. Yeah, we spoke about others. Well, I did anyway. I swallowed and glanced at her. I noticed her face away and tilted her head to face me. I also talked about my imprint and that I thought I imprinted on someone else but that it was a mistake. Things weren't as they seemed. And it helped lower some tension between the pack members and I especially know Brady was very relieved. Hell, I was relieved too. Imprinting on a newborn. What a sick purse. On what a sick person I thought I was. I shook my head. Rosalie smirked. What are you talking about, dog? You mean you're not perfect? Are your wolf senses lying to you again? So beautiful. Smirk at me again, bloodsucker. I'll show you just how well my senses are working. I let my gaze linger on her lips before looking into her eyes again. She bit her lower lip and I held myself back from kissing her. So how did you make the mistake, or should I say how do you imprint wrong? She smirked once more to tease me. However, I pushed her into the cushions on the couch gently and laid on top of her. I warned you, Barbie. I smirked back at her and winked. Then I continued, I'll tell you what happened from my point of view. I know she could have easily thrown me off, but I was grateful I could feel her close to me. While she listened, I walked into the house looking to kill Nessie, when I saw you holding her. It made me stop in my tracks and stare. I figured it was Nessie because he was brand new and the person in the room I hadn't met before. However, up until most recently, I realized I haven't really felt a change with Ness. Sure, I wanted to continue protecting her, but I didn't see myself getting married to her and everything you're supposed to feel towards an imprint. I took it to mean that Nessie just wanted me as a friend, but then she started acting strange. Wanting to brush my hand, flirt with me, etc. It felt more awkward than anything, and then I talked to Sam. He said that it wasn't normal to reject, so he suggested I take time away from her. She nodded in understanding. Anyway, it gave me time to clear my head and I started to think about how much I missed our arguing and that I really started to like our back and forth. Then I noticed how I would get angry when others treated you badly. I see that you also give Nessie the best life she can have. I realized that you would have been a perfect mother, just by the way you've treated Nessie, her whole life. She closed her eyes, but didn't move. I didn't notice you before, because I never truly saw you. I saw what you would have been as a human. I saw your humanity come out. I didn't give in to my feelings because it was harder for me to admit. Vampires and wolves were supposed to be enemies, not together. I truly believe if we had met in your past life, the imprint would have been instant, there'd be no fighting it. Regardless how long it took, I'm glad I found you in this lifetime. We still don't understand imprinting completely, so I guess for some imprinters, especially those who imprint on vampires, it can take time. I wanted to tell you immediately when I found out, but I wanted to completely make sure what was happening was really true. I also saw how much you loved teasing me, that it made you happy. I hated that I noticed how unhappy you were with your other half and I didn't want to do anything to ruin what could have been worked out. So I kept my mouth shut. I let this all play out like it did until most recently, when I couldn't stay away any longer. Brady wants to be around his imprint, and I can't say I blame him. I couldn't hold back my brother from being happy, Jew. Saint, because I was too nervous to tell you. I finally wanted to give her a chance to say something. Why didn't Brady imprint on Nessie when he first saw her? Is it becoming common to imprint slowly? She asked with curiosity. No, I don't think it's common, although we can't know for sure. I do know that Brady did imprint the first time he saw her. That was about a week ago, when she brought us all food. He always had something going on with school, working out, wolf stuff, or anything else to keep busy. Before that day, he never met Nessie directly. He said he didn't want to hang around those who had imprints, because all we did was talk about them. However, when he heard someone was bringing food, he came right over. I saw that Nessie had a small crush on him since that day, which is why she tried so hard not to lose me. She was confused and didn't want to feel so lost anymore. Don't you remember? I came here and acted all jealous and upset. I wish I told the truth that day. She nodded. That was the day that Ness ruined her dress that Bella had to spend 47 hours straight fixing. That's right. Well, that was all for show. I was already thinking about everything and wanted to keep everyone thinking that everything was normal. I do still love Ness, but only as a friend. You are my true imprint. I'm just sorry I didn't figure this out sooner, but you are who I love and you are who I want to make happy. Rosalie smiled and struggled to sit up. She motioned for me to sit up. When I did, she leaned in and pressed her lips to mine. Yes, finally. However, before we could deepen the kiss, Jasper burst through the door. Guys, we have a serious problem. Alice saw a vision. That other coven, they're coming tonight. You've got to be kidding me. What? Rosalie and I shouted in unison. I stood up and then helped Rosalie stand up. So we have to leave tonight? She asked, panicking. Are you kidding me? I really got the truth out. Sadly, yes. We'll head over to the mountain as planned just a little earlier. Jacob, Rosalie, you will still be sharing a tent and be kept isolated. The family will be close enough to hear anyone coming, but far enough away to give you two some privacy. Jasper winked, then added with a chuckle, as long as you're quiet enough. Now is not a time to screw around. Jasper, this isn't the time for jokes. I'm going to fight. I'm a strong vampire and it's also my duty to help protect this family, too. I can either fight alongside everyone, or on my own. You decide. I'm not weak and you know that. She tried to argue back. I had to agree with her. She isn't a weak human. She can handle herself. Rose, you haven't eaten in a while. You need to hunt, then we'll discuss this later. Jasper sighed. I'm sure it'll be fine when you're at your full strength. I'll go with her, while she hunts, I said without hesitation. I'll make sure she stays out of trouble and keep her safe. No one will get to her with me so alert. We all know how that turned out last time. She smirked and I rolled my eyes. I'm going now that we know what we're up against and that's final. I started boldly. Jasper nodded his approval and walked away. Quote, I really think I can handle, she was going to say, but I interrupted her by pulling her body close to mine. I trailed kisses down the side of her neck, whispering, you're just asking for trouble. I growled softly, she is playing a dangerous game. She just laughed and pushed me away. Okay, you can come. I nodded in satisfaction, took her wrist and ran with her towards the woods. Rosalie, I know you never hear this, but will you get on me? Jacob asked with a hint of a smirk. Come on dude, get your head out of the gutter. You could have just asked, will you ride on my back after I turn into a wolf? I shook my head. Rosalie opened her mouth in shock and said, Jacob Black, I only just found out that you imprinted on me, and you already want to escalate this relationship. I blushed a deep red. See, great going. I meant for you to ride on my back. I was going to shift and take you to hunt in my favorite place. I wanted to surprise you. I looked away, embarrassed. Oh, she laughed awkwardly, looking away. I think I can run next to you and follow your lead, but thank you anyway. Just a reminder, when you shift don't forget your pants this time. She smirked teasingly. You aren't ruining this dress. I let my eyes trail down her body and back up slowly. I guess I'll forget them on purpose, then. I winked, then ran behind a tree, undressed and shifted. Images flash. In my head of me forgetting my clothes of purpose. I was too busy thinking about the what-ifs when I noticed Rosalie had disappeared. I chased after her and in the distance saw a bear coming towards her. I quickly pounced on her when I was close enough. Then I held her down, even when she tried to get up. That'll teach you to wait for me. Obviously the brown bear wasn't a problem for Rosalie, since she got free, lunged. Then attacked and drained it. The only problem was that when she approached, the bear caught her dress in its claw and tore it off. Watching her attack something that would have caused damage was hot. But nothing was hotter than watching her stand up from feeding and lick her lips, getting minimal blood on herself, besides her hands. I was in a complete trance, watching her. When she turned to face me with a smile saying, all right, I'm all done, I'm full. I'm glad I hunted now, I was hungrier than I thought. I didn't even move when she walked over and finally realized that she wasn't fully clothed. I just stared at her, not even processing any words she was saying. I thought I heard her laugh, but still didn't respond. It wasn't until Rosalie bent over to pick up her dress that I realized my paws became 2 human feet and were moving like they had a mind of their own. The wolf inside me wanted to claim her as his own and I didn't blame him. As soon as she turned to face me, I had her against me and held her by her waist. When I spoke, I leaned down and whispered in her ear. Trust me, you didn't need that dress at all. If you need to be covered up, I can help you. I can assure you that no one will see any part of you. I felt her shiver in my arms and she bit her lip. Reacting to her actions, I pinned her up against the nearest tree, not wanting to go too far away. I began kissing her neck and heard her let out soft moans. What music to my ears. I frowned slightly when she pushed me lightly away. Jacob, you seriously better not be messing with me. This better not be a sick game. I hate games and I swear if this is. Before she could finish, I moved closer to her and she wasn't able to finish her sentence. I really imprinted on you, Rosalie. If you don't believe me, let me show you. I leaned down and kissed her deeply, sliding my tongue inside her mouth. I felt her battle for control, as she fought her tongue against mine. I was about to lose. It slid my hand from her waist up to her breast. I heard more of her soft moans and stepped even closer. I am the luckiest man and wolf in the world. Before things could progress further, I felt R.O.'s pause for a split second, and then I took in our surroundings. This was not the time or place to get carried away. Things were happening soon and we still needed to make our plan. And if anyone found us, I looked down and nearly cursed. I was still undressed. I went behind the bush where I knew I had a pair of cutoffs and t-shirt. Once I was decent, I came out and walked over to where Rosalie was, t-shirt in hand. I had to adjust myself, since things got heated and now my shorts felt too small and tight. I groaned in discomfort. The Cullens will want to leave soon. If we don't stop now, I don't think I can. And then we would be late. I just watched Rose for her reaction. She wasn't moving and she was becoming a distraction for me again, so I held out my shirt for her to cover up. She smiled and took it. Watching her slide it on and seeing the overgrown cloth on her made me so happy and primal. Just knowing she was covered in my scent made my wolf begging to be released. Down, boy. Not now. I had to shake my head to clear my very dirty thoughts. I growled gently with an internal war building within myself. If we don't move now, I can swear to you we won't be leaving here without any more unripped clothes. You look so good in my shirt, I said the last part to myself. I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying it louder. She probably heard you anyway, idiot. Rosalie grabbed my hand and we began making our way to the house. I loved the fact that she took control and made me follow her. It meant she still wanted me around and I was all for that. I noticed her pause outside the house. I guessed she was listening to see how many Cullens were in the house, but judging by the smell and sounds of talking, it seemed to be enough. There was no hiding what she was wearing and I smirked at the thought. Right as we stepped through the doors, they all peeked around the corner. Everyone besides Jasper looked away. Jasper smirked and winked at Rosalie. Sue, what did you two do in the woods? Jasper asked. Screw you, Jasper. Nothing happened. A bear got luckier than this one. She pointed her thumb at me and growled. The bear shredded it. Likely story. Jasper winked again when I pinched my fingers together as if saying, so close, and grinned. He turned back to the family, but not before fist bumping me. I'm growing to really like Jasper. When the family continued discussing plans, I walked upstairs to her room and chuckled. That Jasper really is a character, I stated, walking up behind Rosalie and wrapping my arms around her. I was so grateful she didn't pull away, as I kissed her temple. Yeah, she responded. He's really been opening up these last few years, getting too comfortable with the teasing. She rolled her eyes and shook her head. Only when she turned to face me again did I notice the coolness of her skin against mine. I finally felt like I could cool down from being so hot. It was so nice to feel cool again. It almost brought me back to the time before I phased. I closed my eyes at the thought. I wonder what else we can do to make me forget I turned into a giant wolf. I smirked at the thought and heard Edward coughing loudly. I heard Rosalie laugh and wondered what she was thinking. That's what you get for eavesdropping, Eddie boy. I can't stop. You stop thinking those thoughts around me. Edward spoke barely loud enough to hear. Maybe I will just think them louder. Edward just sighed in frustration. Rosalie was unaware of the mini conversation I had with her brother. I can't wait for tonight, I said with a smirk. We can finally be alone. I know we're protecting you and there may be this big fight, but once this is all said and done, I let my hand wander to her backside. I've always wanted to do that. I winked and used my other hand to grab the side of her face. I paused for a moment in case she'd stop me, but then I leaned down and kissed her gently. Man, I will never get tired of kissing her. This is my new favorite thing. Let's get through the night, then we can get back to thinking of the positives. She responded, kissing me back. She moved her tongue against mine and I nearly lost control with her again. You smell so good. For a vampire Barbie. I smirked and winked. Rosalie pushed me away and scoffed teasingly. You're so gross, mutt. I have to pack a bag, don't you need to go home and pack one? She began moving around her room, packing her clothes and essentials for the trip. I watched her until her eyes lifted and met mine again. "Oh yeah," she said something. Respond. Yeah, I couldn't stop watching her the whole time. As she walked around the room, I didn't want to leave her, even for an hour. "Would you like to come help me?" I grinned. She wrinkled her nose and smirked. "Yo, you want me to get fleas and other scents from the other dogs?" I held back a joking scoff at her diss. "Well, they sure smell your scent on me every time I come back from your house. I've possibly passed by your room once or twice. When you were out hunting." I stopped speaking. My mind trailed off to the different times I'd come in here just to know what it would be like to surround myself in her stuff. Her lingering smell was an added bonus. "You did what?" I thought I smelled a wet dog, but I figured that smell was from Bella or Ness after hanging out with you. Rosalie looked so cute when she was pretending to be upset. I chuckled and responded without thinking. "Nope, it wasn't them. It's funny, this one time, Emmett almost caught me." My eyes widened at the slip up and I quickly covered my mouth. I swore I would never bring him up. "Great going, wise guy." I noticed her mouth fall open and then she pointed right at me. "How dare you speak his name? You said you'd never speak of him. Get out of my room." Now that she was really angry, it wasn't as cute. "Rose, I didn't mean I'm so sorry." I reached out towards her to hug and comfort her, but that was the last thing she wanted. She pushed me towards the door. I would have fallen on my knees and begged for forgiveness if she'd let me, but I wasn't given the chance. "Please, Rosalie, it just slipped out. I didn't mean to say that name." "Out," she yelled, pushing me out the door and slamming it in my face. I groaned at my stupidity. How do I keep messing up? I am an idiot. I turned and glanced at sad faces, before walking out the front door. Edward gave me a knowing nod and I knew he read my thoughts again. "Oh, shut up." I growled and ran out the door. I undressed quickly, phased and ran home. "We just need some time to cool off. Everything is fine. Everything will be fine." As I began to pack a bag of snacks, extra cutoffs and other necessities, a part of me was growing nervous and I didn't know why. Was it the upcoming battle? I've never felt my heart race this much. Was it concern for Rosalie hating me? I doubted that our connection would end just like that. I wouldn't believe that. As I grabbed a bite to eat, I was running through different reasons in my head. However, the nervousness just got worse and then I felt true pain, like my heart was breaking. What is happening? Then I heard them, the worst noises a couple of wolves had howled. But not just any howl. A loved one was in danger. That's when I knew. I raced out the door and phased without a second thought. As soon as I phased, I saw through Embry's wolf eyes. Sam was carrying Rosalie in his arms through the woods. It gave me a flashback of when he carried Bella and I suddenly wanted to attack the nearest person or animal. I should have been there for her. "Jake," I heard Embry think aloud. But his attention was brought back to his surroundings. Sam began giving orders. "Quill, you go and get clothes from Jacob's house. Bring them to my house. I'm going to have Emily clean her up and get her comfortable." Quill immediately took off to help in any way he could. "Embry, do you see Jake?" Embry nodded his head at Sam and Sam continued. "Good, pass this message along. Jacob, we found Rosalie in an open clearing. She was pulled out in time, but was still injured in the process." "What is he talking about, Embry?" I growled at him. Embry whined and showed me through his eyes what happened. Rosalie had just jumped through flames to end her life. What the hell? Why would she? Before I could continue my trail of thoughts, I realized Sam was still talking to me through Embry. "My house. She will be safe and comfortable. We'll make sure of it. See you soon." I took off in Sam's direction, but not before begging Embry to phase back so I didn't have to see my imprint suffering anymore. Once I was alone in my thoughts, I whimpered. How could she? Was it what I said? I wanted to rip my tongue out of my mouth with how badly I was hurting. And knowing I hurt her just as badly, I phased back and retched near a tree. Luckily it was near Sam's house, but I wasn't ready to see her like this. I paced back and forth for 20 minutes. If she hates his name that much, maybe she still has feelings, maybe she still wanted him. What am I saying? I slapped my face a couple of times and shook my head. Don't be stupid, it's more than you think. Remember when you hated life just because Bella chose someone else? What if she had chosen me for years and then all of a sudden wanted someone else? Although I couldn't imagine being with anyone other than Rosalie now, I tried putting it into terms that I could understand. I sighed. It wasn't my fault, she's just mourning and hurting right now. I just need to be there for her and not overwhelm her with my emotions. I will let her come to me when she's ready. I finally nodded and walked up towards the house. Good you're here, Jake, Sam said. He gestured behind him. She was just changed into your clothes and Emily is wiping off as much soot and dirt as she can, without waking her. Don't worry, it looks worse than it was. She passed out almost immediately, but she'll heal. I thank you all of you. I looked at all the wolves in the room. I didn't know what else to say. I just wanted to be there for her. Sam nodded and stepped into the kitchen. He told Embry and Quill to continue patrolling and he'd meet up with them soon. They ran out the door. As soon as Emily came into the room, she patted my shoulder without saying anything. I walked into the bedroom and saw Rosalie laying in the bed. She almost looked peaceful, but then I remembered what she endured. She was far beyond peaceful. I pulled up a chair and sat by her side. I was stroking her hand and arm and apologizing to her profusely. I let my head lay next to her and dozed in and out a couple of times. I didn't know what time I woke up, I just knew that it was still dark outside. Why did I wake up? I looked down at my imprint who was still out. I sat up and stretched my arms above my head and nearly jumped at the shadow beside me. Sam, what are you doing here? I whispered loudly. I came by with water. He handed me a glass and I chugged it, not realizing how thirsty I was. Thanks, Jake. You should go home and sleep. I can let you know when. He stopped talking at the glare I gave him. Look, I get it, okay. You want to be here with her. But you aren't doing either of you any favors by not getting a good night's sleep. I'm not going anywhere. I've already spent time away from her and look what happened. I gestured to the bed. Besides, going home won't give me better sleep. I'll be worried about her all night. I'm staying and sleeping right here. Right where I should have been. Sam sighed softly, understanding the need to be with your imprint. Look, if you stay here, you have to promise me in the morning you will go home to shower and change clothes. Sam, listen, to lighten things up, I was thinking we could have a mini bonfire night. Just a few couples, not enough to overwhelm Rosalie, but enough to help her understand what it means to be an imprint. I looked down at the beauty still sleeping. Well, who would be going? I was thinking obviously Emily and I, you and Rosalie, Quill and Claire and Brady and Nessie. That is, if that's all right with you. Sam asked. It's not about whether it's all right with me. But would that be all right with Rosalie? I don't know how Rose would feel about it. I only just told her about the imprint I can help you set up, but it's up to her. Leave that to me, Jake. If you are gone when she awakens, I can explain everything. If you're back in time, you can discuss it with her. How does that sound? I thought for a minute and yawned. Sure. I just want to get back to sleep. Remember, when you get up tomorrow, go home and then meet Quill and Brady to set up. Get some sleep, Jake. I nodded to Sam and had my eyes closed before he left the room. Tomorrow is gonna be interesting. When I woke up, it was bright outside and Rosalie still didn't budge. I frowned hoping she would wake up, but she didn't. I stood up and stretched. Then I kissed her forehead and headed home. At home I ate a meal that I kept down, showered and put on new cutoffs, then watched TV. I was getting antsy when I noticed it was 5 and time to go set up for the bonfire. Finally, something productive to do. I met Quill and Brady at the spot and started helping set it up. While making small talk, we goofed around and teased one another. My mind drifted to the day my life changed. A few days before Chapter 1, Nessie called me earlier in the day asking if she could bring some goodies over later, and I told her what time my patrol ended and that I would have company. I was excited to eat the food, but part of me wished she invited me to the Cullen house instead. I shook the thought out of my head. I should be excited to see Ness, it shouldn't matter where. So I patrolled with Brady and Jared. I told them about the snacks Ness was bringing and Jared was all about the food. Brady's stomach growled and we knew he was hungry, but he hated being about us, imprinted wolves. Jared and I were teasing him about it, when he finally gave in. We phased back at the end of our patrol and headed to my house. Fine, but no making out and no goo-goo eyes. It's absolutely disgusting. Brady stuck his tongue out. Ah, Brady, we only have goo-goo eyes for you. Jared laughed, as Brady pounced on him. I laughed with the guys and opened the door to my house. We were sitting at the table when Ness came in. Hey guys, I hope you're hungry. Nessie beamed and set the basket down. Jared and I dug into the basket. All right Nessie, you rock. Jared grinned and dug into his sandwich. Thanks Ness. This is great. I dug into mine and noticed that Brady hadn't touched his food. I looked up at him and stopped chewing mid-bite. Brady was staring into Nessie's eyes and she looked back at him curiously. Before Brady could snap himself out of it, Ness spoke first. Okay, well, I'm gonna go. I hope you enjoy the food and eat up. Nessie looked at Brady. Hi, Brady. He shot his hand out and Nessie giggled, shaking his hand. Right, well, enjoy the food, Brady. Ness didn't even acknowledge Jared and I too much. But the strange thing was it didn't bother me. Nessie kissed my cheek and blushed. Running out the door. What the hell just happened? Jared asked in confusion. Jake, I swear I didn't. I don't know what. Brady stumbled over his words. I couldn't speak. I was confused as to why I wasn't angry. And I was confused why I was relieved. I heard Jared whisper to Brady, talk about goo-goo eyes. Brady just stared at me wide-eyed, like I was going to punch him. While slapping Jared, saying, dude, shut up. Yet I still didn't feel jealous or upset. What the hell is right? When Jared and Brady left, I went over to the Cullen house to see if anyone felt something was off. So far everything seemed normal, except for when I saw Rosalie and felt my heart rate accelerate. I growled in anger to make everyone believe it was because I was angry and jealous that another wolf had a crush on Nessie. I needed a plan and to think about what was going on. And now was not the time to confess any unknowns. Same night. What is going on? I paced back and forth in my room. I told Brady everything was fine and I wasn't mad, but shouldn't I be? He imprinted on Nessie. She was supposed to be my, but was she? After all this time, I thought she made me happy being in the same room as her. I thought back to all the times we'd hung out. She'd come over to my house, but she was just a friend. We'd just watch TV or hang out in the garage. Other times I'd go over to the Cullens. It wasn't pleasant by any means. The smell, the leeches, the teasing, the joking. I grinned immediately. Wait, what? I went back to thinking of time spent with Nessie. Bella and Edward would be there. I rolled my eyes. Sometimes Alice and Jasper or Carlisle and Esme. Rarely Emmett. I clenched my fists. What is going on? I shook my fists out. Rosalie would be there most times at the house. Just keeping an eye on her and making sure she was fed and wasn't bored. I grinned. We even called each other names in front of Ness to get her to laugh. That was a fun day. Oh no, what is wrong with me? A leech. Am I even sure it's her? I shook my head. I thought back to our bickering fights and jokes. Then I thought back to what changed. How did I not see it before? Before I could think any more, the doorbell rang. I went to get the door and was shocked to see Nessie. She never rang the doorbell. Hey Nessie, what's? Before I could get the rest of my sentence out, she hung herself at me and started kissing me. I pushed her back. Whoa, what's going on? I love you, Jake. I miss you and I just saw you yesterday. You should want to see me all the time. Nessie tried kissing me again. I held her back. I will come by soon, okay? You promise? She smiled. Of course, I said before she took off. I just have to figure out how to break this news. 2 days before Chapter 1. Okay, my plan may or may not work. I plan on breaking the news to the pack tomorrow to clear the air. Then I can tell Bella. I don't want to tell anyone. I have to. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No. Yes. No. Why is this so complicated? Because she's married, but he's not around as much anymore, you know this. I groaned at my frustration. Okay. Tell the pack, they better be on board. In fact, they have to be. Tell Bella so she can block our thoughts and because Nessie is her daughter. Brady wants to tell Nessie himself in a couple of days anyway. Tell Rosalie because she has the rig. HT to know of course, and I want to set the record straight. She means a lot, even if we are meant to only be friends. I gulped. I hope not. Finally, when everyone else knows, Edward can know. I rolled my eyes. Honestly, I could care less if he knew, but it is his daughter and somewhat sister. Tomorrow can be the time when everyone starts finding out the truth. I can do this. Back to present. Earth to Jake. Quill was waving his hand in front of my face. I think he's broken. Oh man, I didn't do it, Brady responded, putting his hands up. Shut up, both of you. I smirked. I was thinking about how much has changed recently. So is that a good thing, or do you want to kick my ass? Oh come on, Brady. If I wanted to fight you I would have done it already. I'm just surprised everything is working. Gee, out the way it should have from the beginning. I grinned. Imprinted wolves, Quill mumbled. What was that? Did you say date with Claire? Brady asked, while I chuckled. We were now heading back to Sam's house. Quill turned slightly pink. Shut up, Brady. I'm never telling you anything ever again. There, everyone will find out soon enough anyway. You know La Push is too small of a place to keep secrets. I replied as we saw the house. Did you guys call Claire and Nessie? With a small smile at hearing their imprints' names, both wolves nodded. We told them to meet us at 8. And I think they are riding together. Quill grinned. Quill and Brady made their way into the house first, while I followed. I paused in my tracks, seeing Rosalie awake and okay. Luckily they both said hi to Rosalie, which I was thankful for. I didn't realize I was getting upset until I saw her look at me with a slight frown. Seeing her brought back the fear of losing her, and I was suddenly worried again. Quote, I'm really sorry about what happened. I was confused, and I guess still am, but I am feeling better now. You can sit by me if you'd like. I walked over to her and pulled her into my arms. She hugged me tighter against her. Don't even do that again, I whispered against her hair. I can't lose you. I'm sorry about what I said before, if it caused you to feel like you had to. I never want. Rosalie pulled away, grabbed my face and looked into my eyes. No, it wasn't you at all. Never think that. It was all me, and I'm not just saying, it's not you, it's me, because it really was me. She smiled softly. I grinned back and kissed the side of her head. Then I pulled her to my chest again. No matter who it was, don't let it happen again. She nuzzled against me. I won't. After about 5 minutes, I pulled away and finally sat down. She sat beside me, while I spoke to Sam. Sam, everything is all set up. We told the girls to be there by 8. So we have about an hour. I raised my eyebrow in question. And he knew what I was asking because he grinned and nodded. Yes, Rosalie and I were going to be there too. That's great. That'll give us all time to eat and be down there with time to spare. Colin, Seth and Jared are still on patrol. I mumbled, shoveling my face with food. Good. Sam stacked his plate with food and the rest of the meal was eaten in silence. I was thinking about what Quill and Brady were saying about Dracula's shadow and how the plan was now pushed out a week. Man, if wolves had powers to see future events or read minds, we'd be unstoppable. I looked over at Rosalie as I swallowed another bite. She looked deep in thought. We were going to be talking about imprints, soulmates and love. Oh no, what if she spirals again? I quickly wolfed down my food, and grinned at that saying and how it fits perfectly. We will meet you at the bonfire. Rosalie and I are going to talk. Everyone nodded in agreement and said they'd see us soon. Sam just threatened. We don't wanna have to start without you guys. Jake, you know the bonfire is only half a mile away. Sure, I replied. Then Rose and I put on our shoes and walked out the door. I grabbed her hand and started walking the long way. Because why not? Hey, I grinned, looking down at her. Hi, she smiled back. We didn't really get a chance to talk. How are you feeling? I looked ahead, suddenly nervous for her answer. Honestly, shocked that I'm still here. Sam helped me understand why things were the way they were, and I think I'm understanding my reason for living a little more. I stopped walking and held her back. You really didn't want to live, did you? Well, I'm sure Bella has told you my story. Why would she tell me anything about anyone but her little family? I just shook my head. She sighed and continued. Long story short, I didn't choose this life as a monster. In my human life I was engaged, taken advantage of, and left for dead. Carlisle found me and changed me. I clenched my fists in automatic response. What? I began to shake when she quickly continued, but I got my revenge on those who hurt me. Although I never fed from any humans, they wouldn't hurt anyone else ever again. I raised an eyebrow, grinning. She's never fed off anyone and she got revenge. That's my girl. I was a little theatrical back then. I saw her smirk. Then I started living with the Cullens and slowly our family began growing. Things were fine for a while, but then it got worse again. Yeah, because of that Jacka. I couldn't hold back my words, but stopped instantly with the feel of Rosalie stroking my hand. Actually, it was when Bella joined our family. I looked straight at her. Bella caused my imprint discomfort. I frowned. I mean, now we're fine, if you can call you. That, but she had everything that I wanted. A human life, which she gave up. Then she had a child, and was still able to have the life she wanted. I couldn't say anything, I just listened. That's all I ever wanted. I wanted to be a mother more than anything, and it was taken from me. That's what drew me to you, your motherly instincts, how human you could act and feel. She paused for a moment. I can't give you what you want. I can't give you a pack of pups, she sighed. I opened my mouth to speak, but she continued, Sam told me that I was your mate. That makes no sense because I can't procreate. I really think the imprint you have on me is wrong. I immediately interrupted her. Don't you ever say that. Mate has different meanings. I don't care if we can't have children. Honestly, I wouldn't want to pass down my wolf genes to anyone else. I hated the fact that I became what I am for the longest time. To do that to someone else, let alone a child. I shook slightly and continued, I truly believe we are soulmates. I would have found you eventually in this lifetime, your human lifetime, or any lifetime for that matter. If you were human, I'm sure we would have gotten together quicker and had many, many children. I smiled at every life we could ever have, but was grateful for this one with her now. Rosalie smiled back forcefully and replied, you say you don't want children now, but in the future. In the future we can adopt, if that's what we want. Right now, I want you, and I will only want you. Regardless of what happens with children or not. I pulled her close and kissed her lips gently. I felt her wrap her arms around my neck and deepened the kiss. Once I pulled back, I continued, plus, how cool is it to watch other pack members have their children and we can see them whenever we want. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be in a world where I have to watch my children die. She nodded slowly. Thank you, Jacob. Your words mean a lot to me. I always felt broken or not fully myself. But you make me feel a little better about the situation. I winked at her. That's what I'm here for. Glad I could help. I kissed her gently once more before continuing our walk. Other than that, is there anything else on your mind? Anything else you want to know? We can wait until we get to the bonfire. I think we should head there now. I looked up and saw how late it was getting. You're right, let's go. We held hands and jogged to the bonfire. How lucky am I? As we approached the bonfire, everyone was already sitting next to their mates on separate logs. I pulled Rosalie to the remaining empty log. As we sat down and got comfortable, we looked around at everyone. Everyone was friendly towards us. It was like we were in our own bubbles. Everything seemed to be very relaxed. Sam stood up after letting Emily know he was getting up. All right, so now that everyone who can make it is here, we are going to begin. We felt with the way things have changed the past week, it would be nice to remind everyone why imprinting is so important and what it means to each of us. It's encouraged for everyone to speak, but we understand the circumstances that would make some of you hesitate. Sam looked over at Brady and Ness, then Rose and I. I nodded for him to continue. He smiled and spoke again. In the past we weren't entirely sure what caused one of us to imprint. It was thought that an imprint would bind a couple together to produce strong genes for future wolves. I took a breath and grabbed onto Rosalie's hand, letting her know I was still here. I squeezed her hand and smiled at her. Then when she looked up at me, I kissed her forehead and wrapped my arm around her, and her head fell on my shoulder. Our attention fell on Sam again. We are now finding out that it's deeper than just procreation. Imprinting is more like finding your soulmate than a mate. You've heard that when we find our imprints, it's like the earth moves beneath us. The RTH is no longer keeping us attached to this world, it's our person, our soulmate. We are tethered to them to be whatever they want us to be. Sam smiled at Emily. Some could say it's love at first sight, but as we know, that seems to not be the case. Sam looked at Rosalie and I. I turned slightly red knowing Sam was referring to us. Why did you have to bring that up? Rosalie just squeezed my hand in turn and kissed my cheek. I calmed down instantly. Imprinting is much more powerful than any of us had thought. It strengthens the wolf to protect and want to fight for their person. And to prove that, we are going to dive into the exciting and heartfelt part of the night, where we get to say in front of everyone how you feel about each other and anything else your heart chooses to mention about your imprint. Sam clapped his hands together once and smiled. Now, Emily and I have chosen to start, so you can get an idea of how this could go. Then we will leave the floor open to whoever wants to go next. Sam smiled down at Emily and she smiled back, which encouraged Sam to start. I think we should go last unless Rose gets up first, but I doubt she will. I shook my head and focused on Sam. As most of you already know, I met Emily in the most unexpected way. Before I met her for the first time, I was dating her cousin, Leah. I sighed, hating how hurt my packmate became. I will Avenue to call her soon and check in on her. She left yesterday. As much as I tried to fight the pull of the imprint at first, I realized the universe had different plans for me. It pulled Emily and I closer and closer. From the first moment I laid eyes on Emily, I knew I loved her. She was the one. Since I was the only one going through this at the time, I didn't have any help with the whole process. The thing I would like to pass on to the rest of you is not to fight the pull. I nodded and glanced at Rosalie. She was taking all of Sam's words in. Sam looked at the newer couples and continued. It can make you do the unthinkable and hurt those around you who you don't want to hurt. Sam's gaze reached Emily with sad eyes. No matter how you meet your imprint, just give into the process. The longer it's fought, and I know we've all tried, the worse it will be for both of you. It's never simple at first to allow yourself to fall for that special someone and live happily ever after. However, when you do give in, Sam grinned wider. It's easier than breathing. Emily changed my entire world. I just knew, when I looked into her eyes, everything would work out in the end. She is the most beautiful woman I'd ever met. Inside and out. Emily, I say this in front of our friends and family, that I love you with every inch of my body. Just knowing that you are mine gets me through every day and night. I know you know this. But I can't say it enough. I love you and always will, until my dying breath. Before Sam could finish, Emily jumped up and kissed Sam. Once they finished having their moment, Emily gestured for Sam to sit down and turned to face us. Way to start us off, love. We all laughed knowing Sam would go all out. Falling for Sam was the most confusing and yet easiest thing I ever had to do. Starting out, as Sam said, we did try to fight the imprint. But no matter what we did, we were like strong magnets, always pulled back together. As we grew together and got to know one another, it made us much stronger as a couple. Emily turned towards Sam. He will always be my reason for living, until the day my heart stops beating. I bit my tongue knowing how Rosalie might be feeling. Emily continued. You are my son, breath of life, and always will be the love of my life. Emily winked at Sam and kissed him again. Once Emily had sat down, she nestled into Sam's arms. Quill stood up next and cleared his throat. I guess I can go next by explaining our strange story. It's always bizarre to admit, but the spirits had me imprint on Claire when she was 3 years old. I noticed Rosalie's mouth fall open and I squeezed her hand. Great, something else that's strange and needs to be explained. At that time, it seemed that she needed a big brother and protector. Her parents had stayed away from their family in La Push for so long, and came to introduce Claire to Emily when she was a toddler. Her parents were going to leave and not come back, until Emily thanketh. Yuli stepped in and encouraged more visits and made her sister feel welcomed. I've had many talks about the role I served in her life. Her parents were very confused why I wanted to spend so much time around her. So it took time for Sam and Emily to help them understand. However, I knew in my heart that Claire felt alone and needed someone to advocate for her to live the life she deserves. Ever since her mother brought her here, I have always wanted her around, and give her the freedom of making her own choices and being a good role model for her. Quill cleared his throat and glanced over at Sam. Here we go. Finally the news comes out. Fast forward to today, I'm still letting Claire make her own choices and still being a shoulder for her to lean on. She has decided that we have decided to, go on our first date this weekend and I'm quite nervous, but excited to see where this new adventure takes us. I noticed Sam stiffen and then raise an eyebrow. Quill glanced at Claire. Quote, I'm nervous because of how excited I am and I want everything to go perfectly. You are my best friend, and you deserve the world. I promise to continue to never let you feel alone and that you will always feel protected. Even if I make mistakes along the way, you change me for the better. I love you, Claire Bear. Once Quill sat down, Claire kissed his cheek and stood up smiling at him. Although Claire was slightly older than Ness, Ness still looked older due to her fast aging. I am nervous too, but even more excited. Claire giggled and repeated back what Quill had said. I know I'm young and people think Quill's too old for me. Quill became embarrassed, but none of that matters to me. I've known Quill pretty much my whole life and he has never been anything but a respectful gentleman towards me. I know we have our moments where things get challenging, but we are always pulled back together, much like Aunt Emily and Uncle Sam. If there is one thing I can say about having an imprint, it's how incredible it is. He's my very own best friend that was picked out just for me. Quill is always there when I need him, and I know that when we get married, Claire turned red and then continued. He will never leave me and will only have eyes for me. Just knowing that makes me excited for the future to start. Claire looked down at Quill. No matter what life throws at us, I know I will always have you by my side. I couldn't imagine anyone else I'd rather have beside me. I will always love you. Claire smiled and hugged Quill tightly. Quill kissed her cheek and pulled her to his side. Although they were only cuddling, Sam still cleared his throat and gave them a, watch it, look. Quill and Claire both blushed, broke apart and were content with just holding each other's hands. Brady was next to stand. He was slightly nervous. Hi everyone, I'm Brady and this is Renesmee, but you all already know that I'm sorry, I'm just really nervous. This is the first time I'm opening up and talking about my imprinting experience. I shook my head. About time. Brady cleared his throat and took a deep breath. Some of you already know what happened, but my imprinting timing was very late. Well, I made it happen late. I could have met Nessie a while ago, but instead I stayed away from others who had already imprinted. You have no idea how annoying imprinters are, ladies. Brady looked at all the imprintees and rolled his eyes. While the girls all laughed, I almost growled at Brady until I even heard Rose let out a small laugh and I grinned at her. Imprints are on our minds all the time. New imprints are thought about even more, because it's harder to control our thoughts. Rosalie looked over at me, but I looked away trying to hide my blush. If only she knew how often she was on my mind. She'd probably be annoyed with me. So flashback to before I imprinted on Nessie. I didn't want to be around the imprinted wolves and their imprints, unless absolutely necessary. I stayed away so much. I missed nearly every time Nessie would come by. I didn't even see her in the windows of the Cullens house. However, if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have waited so long. Brady turned to Renesmee. I would have burst through the doors and imprinted on you a while ago. I'm really sorry that it took me so long to get to you. But now that I have you, I'm never letting you go. Renesmee had stood up and kissed Brady. I was shocked they were at that level. But then again Ness was showing more affection. I shook with that thought. I will not patrol with him for a long, long time. When Brady sat down, Renesmee continued to stand. My life is constantly changing and growing. It shouldn't surprise me that this includes relationships too. So much has changed in the past few days, it's hard to wrap my mind around it sometimes. My emotions have been crazy and I've been acting irrational, and I'm really sorry for those who had to experience it. I saw her look at Rosalie with a sad look in her eyes. I was going to jump in to defend her, when I saw Rose nod and smile for her to continue speaking. I honestly thought my life would finally remain constant once my aging slowed down. I tried so hard to hold on to the things that were being pushed out of reach, when the universe was really guiding and pulling me towards Brady. I am very thankful that I felt drawn to bring food to the pack that day. Because that day, I met the one I was meant to be with. Renesmee glanced at Brady. I'm sorry it took me just as long to get to you and that I tried fighting my feelings. Because now I feel more alive with you than I've ever felt before. I know it's very soon, but I can't wait to get married and start a family with you. You are so hot, in more ways than one. My eyes nearly shot out of my head. She's already thinking of all this. She winked at Brady, making him blush. I will always be yours. Brady pulled her next to him and kissed her, wrapping an arm around her. I was happy that everyone else was very happy. I took a deep breath and stood up. I can do this. I noticed Rosalie was tense, but when I spoke, she immediately released her tension. This shouldn't come as a surprise. But leave it to me to make things more complicated than they have to be. Something happened that no wolf had ever faced before. Something that has left me dumbfounded for the longest time, but when I came to terms with it, has brought me more joy than I knew what to do with. I thought I had imprinted before, but my feelings around that person remained constant like a protective brother. Once I realized what happened and let myself understand who my imprint truly was, nothing could compare to how I felt. I smiled and winked at Rose. Here's my imprinting story from the beginning, from my point of view. I thought when I saw a woman who I've seen before, holding a baby, that it was the baby pulling me to the earth and grounding me there. I mean, it would make sense, right? The only change in the room was the baby. However, more recently, with Brady actually imprinting on that said baby, I truly understood what had shifted. I met a tough vampire who wouldn't take crap from anyone and wouldn't hesitate to rip my head off. Given the chance, I looked down and saw that we were smirking at each other before I continued. What I really saw was a woman, who was unfortunate enough to experience being a vampire. But who looked so motherly and human-like at that moment. I had no idea that this angel had completely changed her entire persona. I had found my true imprint, but it wasn't who I thought. She was better than I could have imagined. My true reason for living, fighting and breathing. With our constant bickering and arguing, I didn't realize that we acted like this because she enjoyed it and the wolf was giving her what she wanted. I figured it was because we were supposed to be mortal enemies that we had to stay apart, and so I kept my distance, not understanding why I was upset all the time. I looked into Rosalie's eyes as I spoke. I didn't realize it was you that was the center of my life. And I wouldn't change anything that has happened between us, because I know it just adds to our story. You keep me breathing and wanting to fight for you for us forever. I know we will get into arguments, because a part of us will always be fighting our natural instinct just to be together. You make me feel complete and I absolutely love you for that. Thank you for changing my life. I ended my speech and leaned down to kiss her cheek. Everyone turned to look at Rose. I opened my mouth to tell her that she didn't have to speak, but then she stood up. I guess it's my turn now. I can't say that he's kept me breathing, because well, we all laughed at her joke, but I was still kept on guard. I wanted her comfortable and I was about to jump to her rescue, but she continued speaking before I could. If it were possible, I know that Jacob would make my heart flutter to life. I know being with him makes me feel different, in a good way. I don't feel as alone as I was. Hearing all of your stories makes me understand a little more of what an imprint can be for you. I didn't know why I was having the feelings I was having. I honestly haven't felt this many emotions since I was a human. But I do know that spending more time with Jacob will help me feel more alive. I'm really happy I am not able to blush, because some of the things he says to me makes me want to. This whole process was a lot to take in, especially with everything else that has been happening recently. However, without him, I know I'd be in a worsened state. I do really like him a lot, but I don't know if I can say that I love him yet. It's still too soon, and we haven't even been on a date. She looked down at me, and I sent her a wink letting her know it was coming. I am willing to continue to get to know you more and see where this takes us. I know it's been a lot to take in, but I feel like it will all be worth it. You make it worth it. I think this could be something that could really work. A small smile reached her face. It was the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. I grinned, standing up. Then I picked her up and spun her in a circle. I kissed her deeply. It was different from all the other kisses we've shared because it felt more complete and whole. I felt her shiver with excitement and held her tighter. Sam stood up and applauded everyone and grinned. Now that that's over, let's have some real fun. He turned on the music and pulled Emily into a twirl. I offered my arm to Rosalie and we danced the night away. It was really early in the morning when everyone decided to wrap it up and go home for the night. I decided to walk Rosalie to Sam's house and frowned when I knew she wouldn't be staying with me. I wish you'd come home with me, I almost begged, but let out a yawn. You need to sleep, Jacob. You already didn't sleep well last night when you stayed by my side. she responded. But she stopped my words with a kiss. No buts. Go home and I will see you tomorrow. She pulled away and went to walk inside the house. I grinned. Yes ma'am. I saluted and then took off towards my house, and more importantly my bed. The sooner I slept, the sooner I'd get to see her again. What a perfect way to end the day. Today was a great day. I talked with Leah last week and she said she was coming back to visit today. Then our patrol went smooth last night, with Embry making stupid jokes to make us lose track of time. I spoke with the Cullens earlier about our surprise for our special gal, and I get to spend the whole day with her. I was grinning wide, making sure to pat my pocket to make sure my birthday gift for Rosalie was still there. I took a deep breath. Everything is going to go smoothly. The past couple of weeks have been amazing. Rosalie has gotten to know the pack and they've accepted her. Not that I was too worried, it was always a huge relief when your buddies didn't diss the woman who stole your heart. It also didn't hurt to let them know that Rosalie had never fed from a human before, so everyone felt more at ease. Especially since she's been a vampire for many years. Vampire. The vampire and the wolf. I was so used to the idea that it didn't bother me anymore. At first, those around me were concerned about other wolves phasing with her presence on La Push. However, it seems that the imprint pull and magic, if you called it that, kept others from phasing. Luckily Rosalie stayed inside Sam and Emily's house most of the time. Just in case. I shook my head. Not the time to be getting in your head. I was on my way to meet said imprint and see what she wanted to do today. And even if she didn't mention the Cullen house, it would be my job to get her there. I heard laughing and yelling coming from the house as I approached and grinned. The she-wolf is back. I wondered if Rosalie was in the same room watching the Leah and Embry show. Oh no, what if they didn't get along? I quickly opened the door as soon as Leah screamed, "Are you kidding me?" Embry saw me, winked and then took off out the front door. He was always trying to rile Leah up. "Leah, what's wrong?" I asked her. I took in Rosalie's presence, grinned and walked over to stand beside her. Leah growled, "I'm gonna kill him." She shook her head. He asked, "What do women and noodles have in common?" "Who asks that? What kind of sick, perverted?" My eyes widened and tried to hide a smirk. I felt my cheeks reddening and shook my head. How could he ask that in front of two women? Pack brothers is one thing, but girls. Women. I couldn't hold in my chuckle anymore and walked towards the kitchen. "Yeah, he asked that on patrol last night," I responded to Leah with another shake of my head. "Oh, don't do that to me. Tell me what that joke was about. I wanna know what the fuss is about." Rosalie followed behind me. I turned around and stood in awe of her. "Well, good morning. You look beautiful today." I pulled her into a tight hug, and kissed her deeply. "Don't say happy birthday yet. Wait for the surprise." I grinned into her mouth, as she wrapped her arms around my neck. Before I could deepen the kiss, she pulled away and looked at me. "You're not going to trick me into forgetting." She smirked, crossing her arms. I nearly forgot what she was talking about, until I remembered the joke. I felt hot all of a sudden. "You mean you really don't know the answer?" I asked, rubbing the back of my neck. I turned towards Leah looking for help, but she only smirked and raised her hands in surrender. She was enjoying this a little too much. No, what was it? Rosalie looked between us, obviously confused. How had she not heard Embry's loud mouth? I let out a sigh and then leaned down to whisper in her ear. "Both wiggle when you eat them." At first I was mortified because Rosalie's mouth dropped open. But before I could say anything else, she started to laugh. "That's such a stupid joke." I let out the breath I was holding. Leah huffed out a breath, obviously still upset with Embry. She walked over to Rosalie. "Something funny, Blondie?" she asked. "Oh no, not now." Before I could intervene, my imprint responded, "Yeah. What Embry said was pretty stupid." She rolled her eyes. "He needs better material." I had to agree with her and looked at Leah pleading with her to not do or say anything stupid. I was shocked to see Leah laughing. "You can say that again. I've been telling him his jokes were lame for a while." Both women smirked at each other, while I stood as still as a statue. I could have put money on these two hating each other and having cat fights. I still couldn't believe my eyes. "What, did you Autumn, adequately think we would hate each other and not get along?" Rosalie asked, raising an eyebrow. Kinda. Yeah, Jake. Afraid I'm gonna steal your imprint. Leah winked at me with a laugh. That's not funny. Leah. I groaned, instinctively pulling Rosalie to my side. It's okay, Jacob. One wolf is enough for me. She patted my chest and looked at Leah. I grinned and puffed out my chest. So when do we elope? I noticed Rose asking Leah and instantly slumped and frowned. They both started laughing. I do not find that funny. Leah opened her mouth to respond, when Steve walked into the room. I let out another breath. Thank goodness. I nodded my greeting to him as he waved and spoke to Leah. Leah, is everything all right in here? I saw Embry run for his life. He must have noticed the tension radiating off of me and my protective grip on Rosalie. He probably thought there was an argument brewing. We're only back for a week. Please try not to start any trouble. I gave him a knowing look, making Steve chuckle. We're fine here, just messing around, Leah said, hugging him. I was so grateful Leah was happy. She just needed to get out of La Push to find her happiness, and I was even more pleased to be the one to make that happen. Leah gave one last wink at Rosalie and turned to Steve, pulling him back outside. Okay, love, let's go meet the others. Good, head over to the Cullens. I became wide-eyed again, thinking of how I would suggest going there without making Rose suspicious. I saw her smirk and reminded myself that her meeting with Leah could have gone a different direction. That could have gone so much worse. Leah really has changed for the better, I said aloud, without thinking. Then I shook my head and turned to Rosalie. Luckily for us, she's mellowed out, but I still want you to be careful around her. She's extremely fast and really strong. One accident and I didn't want to think about a fight between the two that was sure to end one of their lives. Jacob, I know you don't know me that well yet, but I can hold my own. If someone needs to be put in their place, I can do it. She lifted her head in confidence and smiled. But I'll keep what you said in mind, okay? She kissed my cheek. I let out a sigh. Okay, but seriously, please be careful. I don't want you getting hurt, or hurting someone else. Especially one of us. I was suddenly concerned. I don't want you to be banned. I won't, I promise. You can trust me. She kissed me gently and then continued. I am wanting to go home today to check on everyone. I miss them and I have to pick up a few things from the house, she said. Are you kidding me? That couldn't have worked out any better. All right, but I'm coming with you. I grinned widely. I have to continue showing up, remember? Oh yeah, Bella did say that, but I would want you to come anyway. She smiled back and grabbed my hand. I pulled her outside. I had to hide my grin and was thankful that I could phase in order to keep it from her. I phased quickly behind the trees and came out afterward. We then took off to the Cullen house. I hope she won't get mad. I don't want to upset her, but I'm so excited. Everything we've been working on together these past couple of weeks have been great. I feel much closer to her. I followed behind Rosalie and grinned when I watched her take in her surroundings. I knew she must have missed this area and these smells. I wonder if I can start building her a house. That way it can be her own area. Then she can come and go as she pleases and have new experiences, no negative feelings around it. As I was thinking of how to ask the pack for help, I noticed Rosalie near the Cullen house. I quickly phased back, got dressed and followed her path. I sensed those in the house before they said anything. One of the wolves dropped a fork and I nearly growled. They almost ruined the surprise. But as Rosalie turned in that direction, the lights turned on and everyone shouted, "Surprise!" I held my breath, not sure how Rosalie was going to react. She seemed shocked, but I don't know if that's because of all the yelling, all the wolves were in her territory, or there was a secret party being thrown. "What are you all doing here?" she finally asked, looking around the room. "It's your birthday. Don't you remember?" Alice was the one who stepped forward and smiled at her. "We planned it all for you." Alice pulled her in for a hug. What if this was a mistake? Alice seemed excited at the idea. I instantly felt calm and knew I was being helped. I nodded at Jasper as he stepped forward. "Happy birthday, sis," Jasper said, pulling Rose into another hug. I saw her look around and smirk. As everyone was greeting her, she turned to Alice. "You know I hate birthdays," I heard her sigh. "NSED," hoping I didn't cause her any regret or discomfort. She seemed to throw on a smile anyway. I know, sister. We just wanted to help keep things positive and fun. What better way to do that than to have a party with all your friends? Alice smiled and winked at her. Besides, most of it was Jacob's idea. He thought you'd appreciate the sentiment. And we have a red velvet cake in the back. Alice cleared her throat and nodded toward the kitchen. Rosalie glanced at me and I gave her a small sympathy grin. She smiled back and mouthed, "Thank you." I then let out the second breath I'd been holding. I noticed Leah make her way forward and gave her a knowing look. She just smirked and said, "I guess you kinda mean something to Jake. Don't hurt him and don't drink too much." She smirked, glanced at me and walked back to Steve, who nodded his head and mouthed happy birthday before wrapping his arm around Leah and walked her to the back of the room. I made my way over to Leah and Steve, Heil continuing to watch the rest of the Cullens greet her. "You didn't have to say all that. You know she wouldn't," I said low enough that only they could hear what I said. "I know, but if anything changes, just know that our agreement and peace with her ends too." She gave me a knowing look. "Not that I want or think anything will happen. To be fair, I don't want to have to move back here. And you seem happier." Leah trailed off as Steve bent down to kiss her head and grinned at her. "Well, I can say the same about you." I grinned as Edward, Bella and Nessie walked up to Rosalie. I knew I had to get to her next. So I quickly let out, "One would think you're going soft, Leah, be careful." I smirked, and before she could respond or hit my shoulder, I stepped towards my imprint. "Happy birthday, Rosalie." I grinned and pulled her towards me. I held her and leaned her backwards for a deep kiss. Then, before it got too heated, I pulled her back up and let her go. I stepped back to let her speak and she looked around at everyone, knowing that they were waiting for her. "Well, I guess I want to thank you all for showing up. It really means a lot. I wasn't expecting this at all. After my accident, I was hoping everyone would forget what happened and things would go back to normal. But I'm glad that we are able to move past it all together." She glanced at me and everyone else. "You are all a part of my family now." She made a point to look at the wolves and I grinned wider. "Now enjoy the party." Everyone started to dance as the music was turned up louder. Food and drinks were passed around. As they danced, before Rosalie sat down, I walked up behind her and tapped her shoulder. I cleared my throat and asked, "Would you care to dance?" "Sure." She took my hand and I led her to the center of the room. I tried to lead the dance, but failed multiple times. When she laughed, I rubbed the back of my neck with a sheepish grin. "Sorry, I need to learn how to do this right." I thought I had it. I looked at my feet and cursed them, shaking my head. She tilted my chin up. "Jacob, it's okay. All you do is place your hand here." She grabbed my hands and placed it on her hip. Then she grabbed my other hand in hers. "Now follow my lead." Once she showed me how to lead the dance, I got the hang of it and took over. We danced to so many songs, I lost track of the number. I just wanted to keep her in my arms. After an hour and a half, Alice finally shouted, "Present time." I heard Rosalie groan. Besides not aging, I wondered if this was why she hated birthdays. I'd have to ask her later. A few of the pack members stepped forward with a box. I lifted my eyebrow at them and watched Rose's reaction. When she opened the gift, it was a wooden wolf. It seems to be about my size, maybe a little smaller. I rolled my eyes. Why would she need this when she could have the real thing? "This is so when Jake is away, you'll still have him with you," Colin spoke up and grinned. "Okay, not a terrible gift. Yeah, the only difference is, you can't physically interact with this one." Everyone laughed, while Paul winked at Rosalie and smirked at me. "That's it, I'm burning it." I didn't realize I was shaking or growling, until I felt Rosalie grab my arm. I blushed as she smirked back at the wolves and thanked them. Carlyle stepped forward with his arm around Esme. Esme handed her an envelope, which was opened carefully. Inside were 2 tickets to Paris for 3 weeks. I looked at them with wide eyes for a split second, then remembered how rich they were and knew this was probably nothing to them. Edward gave me a small frown and I shrugged. "What? You can't deny that." Edward sighed and shook his head so quickly, I almost missed it. Jasper and Alice wanted to give their gifts next. My hands were sweating with the gift in my pocket for her. I was nervous, not because I thought she would turn me down, but because I'd never gone steady or had a long-term girlfriend before. I knew back in the day men would court ladies. I also knew it was the proper thing to do and I didn't want to mess it up. Edward glanced at me with a curious look, but I ignored it and kept playing with what I would do when it was my turn to give her the gift. Should I kneel? No, that's silly, I'm not proposing. Should I take her outside to be alone? What if she wants others to see? Should I have asked Carlisle? He's not her real dad. What should I do? I thought I had this all planned out, but I was hoping that when the time came, I would just know it would come naturally, but of course, the time was now. And I had no idea what to do. I'm screwed. When I glanced up, I saw it was my turn, as Bella, Edward and Nessie were stepping away. Everyone looked at what was going to happen next. Edward was opening his mouth, about to speak, but I shook my head at him and stepped forward. I didn't need anyone helping me. I got this. I forward and gave Rosalie a grin. I wiped my sweaty hands on my jeans. Now I know we haven't been together long. And you have only recently started to like me, but I feel this strong connection with you and would like to continue seeing where it goes, if you are up for it. Suddenly I felt that I needed to humble myself a little, by making myself smaller in front of her. It felt right, so I knelt to the ground on one knee. Rosalie looked at everyone in shock. While everyone smiled at the scene, almost everyone knew how serious our talks and relationship seemed to be getting. Rosalie, for the longest time, I've known there was something special about you. So will you go steady with me? I pulled out the small box from my pocket and opened it up. Inside the velvet box was a promise ring that I had gotten from the small jewelry store in Forks a couple of weeks ago. Rosalie smiled and I felt more relaxed. She nodded and responded, yes. Of course I will. A few seconds later, a strange noise came from outside. I frowned and stood up. We all looked towards the door. I wrapped an arm around her. Suddenly there was a loud boom. The door burst open and many vampires poured into the room. There seemed to be many different ages. One voice called out from the group, well, what do we have here? Please don't let us ruin the fun. We finally made it, we are Dracula's shadow. He grinned and shouted, grab them. Everything was a blur. At first the house was set up for the party, and now things were flying everywhere. The shadows seemed slightly thrown off seeing the pack with the Cullens. However, that didn't stop them from unging forward and throwing anything they could grab at us. As we ducked and threw things back, we realized we were getting nowhere. The space was too small to fight in and Carlisle must have known that. What shocked us all was not shifting at all. With being close to so many mortal enemies, it was strange to not unleash our true beasts. However, we don't have time to think it through. Things were escalating far too quickly. Shortly after we began, Carlisle yelled to get everyone's attention. Hey, let's take this outside. This is not the way to handle this. One of the male shadows scoffed and wrapped a hand around his throat. Everyone stopped in shock. No one wanted to move unless given the order to do so. It was obvious who one of the leaders was. I saw that Rosalie was about to jump in. I stepped towards her, willing to hold her back. When Renesmee spoke, let him go. We know why you're here and you can't have her. We can work this out. No one has to get hurt. Let's talk about this outside. After she finished, Carlisle was released and we all made our way outside. With the volume and tone of her voice, we could all tell she meant business and needed to listen to her. It now makes sense why the doctor is so fond of her. Once we made our way outside, the Cullens and pack members kept away from the other group and we were all divided down the middle. Renesmee spoke up. Why did Emmett create you? Was it to kill us? Is that really necessary when he's dead and you are free to do as you please? She was waiting patiently for someone to speak up. A woman stepped forward and replied, you think Emmett created us? She laughed and shook her head. Melissa created us. She never told us to kill all of you, just her. She grinned evilly, pointing at Rosalie. I heard her growl at the woman and then I let one escape. I stepped closer to my imprint, then put a comforting hand on her back and rubbed in circles. I wanted to calm us both down and that seemed to work for a little bit. The woman then turned to look at Renesmee. And we are doing what we please. She made me the new leader and by looking at her now, I do want to kill her. I moved to step forward to tear her head off, but Rosalie Lai's hand on my arm kept me from moving forward. I looked over at her, but she was facing the other woman again. Can't we work this out without fighting or losing lives? Esme frowned, trying to figure out what we could do. There's nothing to work out. We want her dead, and that's what's going to happen. If she doesn't die, then I'd have to die. And that's not going to happen. She smirked. Words flew out of my mouth before I could stop them. Or no one has to die and you can all just leave. I glared at the woman. Or you can die anyway. We came here to finish a job and we will do it. The man who spoke in the house stepped forward. He looked like he was ready to pounce. I clenched my fists, ready for anything to happen. I was about to attack, when Rosalie's words stopped my movements. It's fine, guys. She patted my arm and gave me a confident look, then looked to the others and held up her hands to stop anyone from moving. I can handle this. Like hell you should. I wanted to go step forward, but struggled because she wanted us to stay still. I was losing the internal battle fast. I knew she was strong and could take care of one by herself, but a group of them. I watched as she stepped up to the unnamed woman. Well, it would be better if I was fighting someone prettier, then I'd actually have a face to actually mess up. I smirked at her words and watched the enemy reach for her hair. I watched Rosalie dodge the attack and grab her by the throat instead. Don't ever touch me. She threw the woman off to the side. Watching the girls fight stressed me out, but seeing my girl hold her own made me proud. I nodded in approval at the way Rosalie handled herself. I was so engrossed in the fight, I hadn't realized Jasper had slid up next to me. I taught her what she knows. She's good. I nodded and looked at him for a split second as he continued speaking. She just needs to. Jasper froze and glared at the scene in front of him. I glanced back at the scene. I growled when I noticed Rosalie being held by the throat by the evil leech. I knew if I moved, my imprint would cease to exist. My world was crumbling and I was losing it. I began to shake, knowing any minute would be one the wolf would take to fight. I wasn't the only one who felt the need to do something. I noticed the other Cullens move forward. Edward was quick to tell us that things are under control and all right. Supposedly, according to the evil spawn's thoughts, nothing bad would come of this. Yeah, right. Do you not see what we're all seeing? Edward glared at me. I was fighting an internal battle and glanced over at the rest of the vampires on the shadows side. All of them were waiting for the opportunity to pounce, but one other woman caught my eye. She seemed to be in a trance with her eyes focused on Rosalie. I knew she would be the one I would be after. I don't know what voodoo magic nonsense this leech is playing at, but she won't live long enough for me to ask. I was about to sneak off and go around the side, when I heard Edward step closer towards me. Don't think about doing it yet. If you move, you make things worse. But I replied. You need to wait for a signal. There's something strange about the way she's trying to manipulate Rosalie's thoughts. I scoffed at Edward and glanced back at my imprint. What could be happening right now? Rosalie was watching us, and trying to break free of being held. I could tell she was speaking, but my heart was beating so fast. I mainly heard the beating in my ears, and the whispers of those around me. The pack was doing everything they could to fight their internal instinct to phase an attack. I knew it wouldn't last long. I snapped back to reality when I heard the evil leech say, "You should pay for their lives." I watched her tighten her grip on Rosalie's neck. I knew in a few seconds her neck would break, so I gave the command for the wolves to attack. That's the signal. Now, take down as many as you can. I shouted and headed for my imprint. The evil woman was shocked as I turned into a wolf and she backed away, still holding Rosalie by the neck. Wait a minute, she shouted, but saw that it was pure chaos now. I don't want to kill her. I just want her to feel the pain I did when I lost Emmett and Melissa. The woman released her hold on Rosalie's neck by ripping at her arms and legs, attempting to tear them off. I growled and pounced as she threw a bruised and torn up imprint on the ground. I chased after the spawn and finally caught her after less than a minute. I tore her apart and threw her head to Jasper to burn. He had already started a fire and was collecting pieces, when he wasn't fighting the other coven members. I took off after the other woman I saw earlier. I looked around, used my wolf's sight and sense of smell to find her, but couldn't find anything. I didn't give up. I tried asking Edward in my thoughts where she was, but he was too preoccupied. I even tried asking the wolves for help, but again, no luck. I thought maybe she had to be closer to Rosalie, but I don't want my wolf around my imprint right now. Now with all the smells of the other coven, mixed with the evil woman's scent on her. It took a few minutes, but I calmed down enough to phase back. Luckily, killing a coven leader in wolf form kept the others far away from me. I walked in the direction of Rosalie and noticed other non-Cullen vampires near her. I instantly became protective again and punched one vampire after another towards the other wolves and Cullens to tear up. I must have punched too many because my fist began bruising badly, but I didn't care. I finally got close enough to Rosalie to spot the target I was looking for. She hid up in a nearby tree. I grinned and began to climb up. When she noticed, she leapt off the branch and took off in the opposite direction. The fight had dwindled down, so others were chasing her the same time I was. The wolves and Cullens teamed up to block her off. Before she could move to get away, I nodded towards Sam and Paul and they tore into her. I came behind them and gladly tossed the pieces into the fire nearby with my good hand. Now that the fight was over, I grimaced in pain and looked down. A few fingers were out of place and my fist was bluish-purple. I knew my entire hand had to be reset, but I wanted to make sure Rosalie was all right first. As I approached, I noticed that she wasn't alert yet and frowned. I wondered what was wrong, especially since I couldn't check for a pulse to make sure she was still alive. That frustrated me more than anything. Carlyle approached with Edward following closely behind. Edward noticed my thoughts and spoke quickly, "She'll be all right. Her thoughts are muffled, but still there. It seems that she's thinking of you being with her." I nodded at him and tried to calm down. I nearly cried at the deep cuts and bruises forming all over her. I should have protected her better. I shook my head. If I did anything else, she might not have survived. She will heal. She's not a human. Edward knew what was wrestling in my thoughts and chose to stay silent, which I was grateful for. However, Carlyle spoke up before I could enjoy the quietness of my thoughts. "Jacob, I need to reset your wrist and fingers. They aren't in the right position. Why don't you come inside and I can?" "I'm not moving." I cut him off. The last thing I wanted was to be away from my imprint. "Understood." Carlyle walked inside to get what he needed to bring out to fix me up. Edward cleared his throat. "Maybe you see, and you know." I glanced over at what he was implying and saw him gesturing to my bare skin. "Right, I'm still nude. They're behind the brush, 4 trees to the left." Edward moved to grab the clothes and when he got back, I put them on. "When you said she was thinking of me with her, I tried to get out so I didn't get emotional. It's almost like she's in a dream with you. But since we don't dream, we know it was the power of one of the women. The last one we got. I was upset that she was overtaken by the power, but glad that it was a positive experience. Yes, we thought she had the ability to create only nightmares in your head, but it turns out it could be anything." Edward shrugged. "She might not even feel and see the worst of it, since we already defeated the creator. It's just that she seems to still be trapped." Edward became deep in thought. I knelt down beside Rosalie. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I messed up again." I was pleased Edward allowed me silence to process what had happened. "Once this is over and you wake up, we can start fresh." Minutes went by, which felt like hours, before Carlyle came out of the house with a little cart. It carried all of his tools. I glanced around and noticed the Cullens weren't in sight and only a couple of wolves were waiting near the inside of the tree line. You wouldn't think we fought anything, if not for the fires. Burning smells and some cuts and bruises. This may sting. Sorry in advance. Carlyle held a needle in his hand, while I focused on Rosalie. I barely felt the numbing needles and was grateful I did. Need to feel every bone rebroken to be placed correctly. Towards the end I felt some of the pain. I guess my body heat must have burned through the numbing concoction. "Thank you. Of course, Jacob. I know this is hard on you. But I think it would be best to rest at your home." Carlyle bluntly stated the truth. "I can't leave her. She needs me. She is in a peaceful state where she will come to. Unfortunately we don't know when she will awaken, but as soon as she does and she's checked over, I will have her call you or come over." How does that sound? I knew Carlyle just wanted to help. Before I could say anything, Seth and Jared came out into the open and pulled me away. But I want to stay in. I tried fighting against the two beside me, but they seemed stronger. That's weird. She'll be okay. One of us can you need to rest. I heard Jared, but all of his words weren't registering. Maybe it was the medicine I was given, but I was feeling incredibly tired and worn out. Maybe a nap would be good. I nodded. She'll call me when she can. I was nodding in and out the whole way to my house. Those drugs were really strong. I must be dreaming. How long? Jared trailed off. An hour, a male voice responded. Thank you, Jasper. We appreciate the help. Seth spoke softly. Those were the last words I heard before my body gave out on my bed. I opened my eyes and blinked a couple of times before realizing where I was. I looked around my room and let out a deep breath. It was just a dream. More like a nightmare. I leaned on my side to get up and winced in pain. What the? I looked down and noticed my wrist was in a brace. If that was real, then that means all the recent events came flooding into my mind. No. I jumped up and scurried around my room trying to get my head cleared. I was still a little lightheaded and checked the clock. I couldn't have been out long. Maybe an hour. It still looked light out, but was it the next day? I didn't think so. I thought of Rosalie. How was she? What if she's awake and needs me? Why did they take me here? I growled at the thought of being more defenseless than I would have liked. Why didn't I fight harder to stay by her side? I ran out of the room and headed straight for the door. However, I was stopped by Dad in the kitchen. Whoa, son, where's the fire? My dad chuckled and wheeled himself towards me. I guess he didn't know what happened. I gotta get over to the Cullens' house to see. I was cut off by my dad. Dad's grin was off his face instantly. Actually, I was hoping to get a ride over to Sue's for a little bit. She had to work this afternoon and I told her I'd be there to see Leah and Steve off. It shouldn't take too long. Can't they just come here before they take off? I asked. The glare Dad gave me made me sigh. Son, you know that's not in our nature. We take care of each other. Now go get your keys and let's go. The sooner we leave, the sooner we get back. Why did we have to live in such a tight-knit community? Sure. I mumbled, wishing I would have snuck out the window of my room and phased to get where I wanted to be quicker. Well, maybe it would be a bad idea to phase into a wolf with my wrist like this anyways. Just as I grabbed the keys, Seth and Jared came barging in. Well, look who's awake. Jared grinned. Told you. Now you owe me 20. Seth grinned wider. No way. I was the one who suggested we come here. Yeah, because you said you doubted he would be up with the sedative he was given. Jared scoffed and pulled a 20 out of his wallet and handed it to Seth. I'll get that back by the end of the week. Whatever you say. Seth tucked the money away, grinning. What are you two doing here? I was a little irritated that everyone was seeming to stop my progress from getting to my imprint. Well, Carlisle told Sam, who told Paul, who told Jared, who told me, Seth dragged on. Get to the point. I was losing it at this point. Basically, Carlisle said, you couldn't phase for at least 12 hours. And because it's only been an hour and a half, you have 10.5 more hours to not phase. Jared grinned with a smirk at Seth. I should have just told him myself. Well, you wanted to make the bet, so. Okay, I'm told. Was there anything else? Or can Dad and I leave? Take deep breaths. Don't lose control. I tried to calm myself the best I could. Where are you going? Seth grinned, curiously. Apparently to see your sister off before she leaves La Push again. I responded, a little irritated. I guess the battle is scaring her away again. I mumbled the last part to myself, not wanting to upset Seth. But clearly I was still upset that I had to stop everything I was doing for goodbyes. Seth hit his forehead and cursed. I forgot that it was today. With the party, battle and being on patrol for an hour, I haven't been home. Can I get a ride? Sure. Just leave me hanging. Jared chuckled before waving at us. I was gonna head home anyway. Jake can give you a ride. Can't you, son? Dad was wheeling his wheelchair outside. Sure, I said through clenched teeth. Oh no, I can run. I'd rather not be smooshed in the backseat with this one. Jared pushed Seth teasingly, before Seth punched his arm. Okay, can we please go now? I begged. The sooner we leave, the sooner we can be back and I can get to Rosalie. I kept her in the front of my MI. ND to keep my irritation from unleashing. As I helped Dad in the truck, Seth climbed in the back. Then I climbed into the driver's seat. I took off down the street as fast as I could, without getting pulled over. I glanced at the speedometer. Okay, maybe it was a little faster than I thought. Luckily the Clearwaters didn't live too far, but wheeling Dad down the street and back would have taken too long. And I hated when he went by himself. Sometimes we got speeders in the neighborhood who were lost or just looking for trouble. I didn't want Dad to deal with them. My hands clenched and unclenched from the steering wheel. Go back to thinking about Rosalie. We pulled into the driveway to see Leah and Steve with their suitcases outside. I helped Dad down and he wheeled over to give them hugs. Quote, "Your mom wished she could have been here," Billy said regretfully. "She said bye already. She made us a huge lunch after the fight and we talked then." Leah smiled, while Steve held her hand. "I wish you could stay." Seth looked at the ground. "I'm gonna miss you again." "Aw Seth, we'll visit more often, I promise. I think Steve is growing used to this place." Leah laughed, while Steve nodded. "What's not to like? No crowds, close family, surfing, people staying out of your business. That's the way to live." Everyone laughed. "We just have a year and a half and we'll see about a move, okay?" Leah told Seth. Seth nodded with a smile. "Deal." Seth hugged Leah and pulled back. I watched the whole scene with my arms crossed and my thoughts kept trying to trail elsewhere. What is happening? Something is wrong and I don't know what. You feeling? Leah was talking to me. Or I thought she was because she was looking right at me. What? I asked in confusion. How are you feeling? Your wrist all right? Leah asked. I nodded. Yeah, fine. He's worried about Rosalie. Seth responded. I can see that. With how everything ended. Leah shook her head. Another reason I'm getting out of here is to protect this one. She gestured at Steve as he talked with Dad about properties. I knew it. Yeah. Sorry I'm not all here. Have a safe trip back and we'll talk soon. I saw a car pulling up and sighed in relief. I could only handle so much small talk with everything on my mind. As Steve packed his and Leah's suitcases into the car, Leah gave one last round of hugs. They got in the car and we waved until we couldn't see them anymore. Are you okay? Dad asked Seth. Are you kidding? Mom made lunch and I know there will be leftovers. Thanks for the ride, Jake. And good luck. I chuckled at his enthusiasm and helped my dad back into the car. I got in the driver's seat and took off for the house to drop him off. Almost there. My stomach was in knots and I didn't know why. I had a really bad feeling and needed to get to the Cullens. As I pulled up to the house, I helped Dad down and ran back to the driver's side of the car again. Thank you, Jake. You really are the best son. I grinned at him. Thanks, Dad, but I gotta go. Check in on Bella and Ness, will you? Make sure they're okay. Sure. I waved and sped off. I barely registered him telling me to head there first, so he could let Charlie know they were all right. When I realized I was still nodding and waving. Wait, what? As if I'm doing that. My imprint comes first and Dad should know that. I'll check on them after I know Rosalie is all right. I drove to the Cullen house, not caring about the speed. I knew they drove faster than this and I wanted to get to her as quickly as possible. I reached the house in record time and Dee wasn't surprised to see Edward waiting for me and holding the door open when I arrived. I looked around the room and didn't see her. Where is she? What room is she in? I asked, not stopping to take a deep breath. My heart was accelerating. I felt worse now than I ever had. Something isn't right. Edward sighed. Do you remember when I told you that you were in Rosalie's thoughts? That she was thinking of you? I froze at her name and then started to pace back and forth. Yes, so what? Where is she? I glanced at Carlyle, who was not saying anything at the moment. Oh no, it must be bad. Edward continued. Well, apparently the ability that the vampire had was to create a real-life nightmare inside your head. Everything starts out happy, what you want to see, and then once you're trapped, the happiness is torn away. He stopped to give me time to process. I paused and glared at him. Wait a minute, back up. Being with me is Rosalie's nightmare. I clenched my fists. No, you misunderstood me. The part where she was with you was the happy part that she wanted to happen. It's the end of her dream that took a turn. That's it, I have to see her myself. I need to make sure she knows I'm here. I started for the stairs. When Carlyle's words hit me. She's not here, Jacob. He sighed, glancing at Edward. Edward shook his head and held up his hands in protest that he wouldn't speak, then gestured for him to continue. What do you mean not here? I stomped back into the room. You told me you would have her call me or come see me when she got up. And unless she's headed to my house, she better be here and safe. Carlyle closed his eyes for a moment before opening them again. I already apologized to Rosalie, but I guess I should apologize to you as well. Rosalie's nightmare came true. The only thing that would be a nightmare for her would be, but you took care of that. Of him. Carlyle shook his head. We banished him and told him if he ever came back we would kill him. Jasper and I wanted Rosalie to think he was gone for good. We wanted her to have peace and happiness. We thought we could accomplish that by making her think he was gone. You've got to be kidding me. I wanted to phase right then and tear Carlyle apart, but I knew that wouldn't do anyone any good. I was shaking and it took me a minute to get it under control. And the woman, the one who was with him. I took a deep breath, but still kept my fists clenched. I ended her life with my own hands. She is gone for good. I swear that she will never be a problem again. I nodded, which brings me to my next question. Where is Rosalie? I emphasized each word to keep as calm as possible. I knew I had a bad feeling. I should have ignored Dad's visit to the Clearwaters and came straight here. Edward finally spoke up again. I read her thoughts, Jacob. She said she needed to do this to gain her sanity back. She needed the proof herself. To make sure he was gone for good. He stopped, knowing I was back to shaking. What did she do? I growled out each word. He came here. I finished patching her up, but then he came in through the doors. Carlise looked regretful. We tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen to us. I let out a low growl. Where did she go? Where did he take her? If I catch them, then I can. Don't you get it? She didn't want help. You don't think I wouldn't have stopped them myself? I could read their minds and see their plans. Edward seemed angry. If it weren't for Emmett feeding off humans and getting stronger, we could have. And you let her go with him at full strength. Now I was fuming. I was shaking so hard that I knew in a second or two I would phase and I wouldn't care. You don't understand the plan, Jacob. Edward was standing closer to me. If he thought he could calm me down, he had another thing coming. Then tell me. I couldn't stop myself from yelling. I wanted to believe she was okay, but I still felt unsettled and sick to my stomach. Yet I still wasn't getting answers. She wants to kill him herself. Then she can be done with him for good. Edward stood firm and held me back from going out the door. She's got this, Jacob. Please trust me. Trust you. I nearly laughed and tried making my way past him to the door, but Edward was too strong. Let me go. I will hurt you, and I won't regret it. I thought angrily. You know I can't do that. I let out a deep breath. I guess I'm going to have to do this the hard way. Edward must have read my mind because he immediately said, Look, we both know you shouldn't phase right now. I rolled my eyes at the obvious. You think I care? She needs me. You don't get to tell me what to do. I growled. I was loosening up a little bit and not clenching my fists anymore. That could only mean, is everything okay here? Jasper gave me a knowing look and I glared at him. I hated when my emotions were messed with. Jake. I glanced over at Bella. I hadn't even noticed her enter the room. My only focus was getting to Rosalie. What? I snapped a little too harshly. Please just hear Edward out. He means well. I scoffed and glanced back at the broody vampire in front of me. Hey, I'm not Brew. Don't start. Tell me why she had to get him alone. Someone should have gone with her. I glared at Edward. As I said before, she said she had to do this on her own. She is strong enough to fight. I scoffed again. Strong enough. She doesn't feed from humans and you know that. Obviously he could overtake her and, I shuddered at the thought and went to go around him to get to the door. Edward was quicker and grabbed me by the arm. He shoved me in a chair and kept his grip on my arm. She will be back soon and, Alice and Esme had made their way closer to the door to block me if they had to. Not like they could stand the chance against a phased wolf. I looked at Edward and growled. My heart was racing and if I didn't get out of here soon, I was going to lose it. Edward, let me go. I have to find her. I need to know she's okay. Why don't you believe me, Wolf? I heard her thoughts. She thought loud and clear that if anyone kills Emmett, it would be her. She can take care of herself and she had a plan. Although, you might not like it. Edward snapped his mouth shut and looked at me with wide eyes. What is you holding back? And what plan won't I like, Leech? I questioned angrily. I was gripping the chair so hard, I heard it creaking. Edward sighed. She plans on seducing him to vulnerability. Everyone here can testify that he would fall for her deception and... What? I screamed. At that the chair broke in my grasp and I jumped up, pushing back those who rushed at me. No, I don't think so. Just as I was about to phase, I saw her run into the room. Everything is okay. I'm right here. I'm okay and I'm here. Rosalie's voice filled the room, as did her scent. I ran and pulled her into my arms. I was filled with relief, anger, fear, happiness, and so much more that I was shaking. Rosalie must have sensed what I was feeling because she tried to break the silence with a smirk. Quit yelling at Edward, Jacob. He only did what I told him to. My plan worked and everything is much better now. I resumed frowning. How could she be okay with her plan? She turned to speak to everyone. Now, he really is dead. I made sure of it. I'm fine. He barely touched me, before it was over for him. Please stop arguing and fighting now, because everything is great. My thoughts were focused on her words, barely touched me. What did that even mean? Her attention shifted solely to Edward and Bella. Oh, and Edward, Bella, you might want to get home and check on Ness. She seems to be a little lonely. My mind was still reeling from the need to protect her. I barely noticed them leave the house. I felt Rosalie step closer and hug me again and I held her to me, afraid that she wasn't real. Could Jasper create hallucinations? I spoke to ground myself in so I could hear her again to prove she was real. Rosalie, I should have been there to help you. I told you not to do things like this alone and that I'd always help you, especially when you already gave me a scare. I pulled her tighter against me. One by one the Cullens vanished and I was suddenly less vulnerable and tense. I know, Jacob, but this was something that I had to do alone. She rubbed my back and kissed my neck gently. I needed to make sure that he suffered for making us suffer, for making me suffer. I was really hurting, but now I feel so much better. The next time there's a fight, you can be by my side if you want. She smiled softly at me. I continued to frown, but I was already by your side and couldn't do anything earlier. I thought I saw that you die right in front of me, and then after the nightmare was over, I was stitched up and sent home to wait for you. That was too unbearable. I'm so sorry. Carlisle was probably trying to protect you. We can talk to him about what to do differently next time. However, I had a different experience, but it still felt so real. There were strange things that didn't seem right. She shook her head, trying to forget her memories, and I didn't want to pry further. When she was ready, if she was ever ready, she would tell me. But we get to move forward now. Things are better and we are now together. I moved her backwards against the wall behind us. I leaned over her and smirked. I will only feel better once you promise me that I will have you to myself forever. No one else stands in our way. When she nodded and kissed me deeply, I slid my tongue into her mouth. Her tongue battled mine, chasing it back into my mouth. She tasted so good and I never wanted to let her go. She moaned against my mouth and pulled my body closer to hers. I was growing excited and knew we had to move this elsewhere. Rosalie, I said between breaths and kisses, I am so glad you're safe, but I feel like I need you right here and now. Is this something you are comfortable with? I didn't want to assume she'd be ready, nor did I want to assume she'd be ready to use her bedroom again. She nodded, while kissing my neck. I cleared my throat. Good, so is there someplace besides your room we can go? There are too many listening ears. I was not going to care where we were in a few seconds. She stopped her motions and thought for a second. Why don't we head to your house, your room? She shrugged and pressed herself against me. I gulped and nodded. As I was about to pick her up, the pressure on my wrist made me wince. Oh come on. It's almost healed. You need to be careful with that. No lifting or hurting yourself more than necessary. Rosalie said cautiously. I smirked back yes dear. It barely hurts, only when I move it a certain way. By tomorrow or the next day I'll be all healed up. But I'll take it easy for the rest of the day, I said and watched her smile in approval. And no phasing, she added. I chuckled at her cuteness and motioned towards the rabbit, near the side of the house. Okay then, good. I smirked, wanting more than anything to see how she handled my car. I knew she was great with them, but let's see how she handles my pride and joy. I handed her my keys and shrugged, grinning as I noticed her looking at me questioningly. From what I've heard, you're really into cars. Which I find incredibly sexy, by the way. I smirked and continued, so I thought you'd like to drive and try her out. And we do want to get to my house as fast as possible, since I'm, crippled. I chuckled and only stopped when I saw her smirk. She grabbed the keys and stomped off towards the car. Absolutely, and there's even more you need to learn about me. Now get in the car or you can drive home yourself. I stared at her open-mouthed and shocked. She was laughing as I jogged to the car and got into the passenger seat. I noticed Rosalie trail her hand to her top and start to unbottom it slowly. As I watched her, I couldn't help but let out a groan. This woman will be the death of me. She just winked at me and sped the car up. I shifted in my seat in anticipation. As we got closer to the house, I spoke quickly. I know your hearing has a larger range when I'm not in wolf form, so can you check to see if my dad's home? Oh, he is. I went to say hi earlier, and you weren't there. I raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Oh no, I wonder how that went. I let out a chuckle and replied, could you double check? He loves to go fishing with Charlie and then stay and have dinner with him and Sue. Figured today would have been as good of a day as any, and even if Sue was still working, he could still eat with Charlie. I watched her as she concentrated on listening for my dad. Once we pulled in, she turned the car off and got out of the car. I guess he wasn't home because she marched right up to the front door and knocked incredibly loud. I knew she was making a scene and I smirked at her actions. I got out of the car quietly and shut the door. She turned to look at me and shook her head that no one was coming to the door. Just as she turned to face the door, I quietly ran up behind her and pressed myself against her back. I opened the door and pushed it open. We don't keep the door locked. No one breaks in around here, it's a safe neighborhood, I told her as I smirked and then grabbed her backside. I felt her trying to face me, but I kept her forward while we walked through the door. Since she teased me, she's not going to get to look around yet, I'm going to tease her. I led her to my room and finally backed off from behind her. As I moved into her eyesight and crossed my arms, she tried to hide a laugh that was bubbling up. What is it, Blondie? I asked with another smirk. She only shrugged and walked over to me, then she pushed me up against the wall. Nothing at all, mutt. She kissed me deeply, deeply. I led her backwards to the bed behind her. Once I laid her down, she pulled me down and wrapped her legs around my middle. She began to deepen the kiss and sucked on my bottom lip. I finished unbuttoning the rest of the shirt that she started undoing in the car. I wriggled my eyebrows. What have we here? I believe you have been teasing me with these. I winked and gently grabbed both breasts. She arched her back and moaned aloud. I felt her pull me against her and our kisses grew more intense. Kisses and hands were trailed everywhere and clothes were removed until nothing remained. Once we were ready, we came together. It didn't take long before I was sweating from what seemed like the most intense workout one could have. 3 rounds later I was tapped out. I held on to Rosalie as I caught my breath. She was against me and neither of us minded the other's temperature and closeness. If this was what I was missing, I wished I had known I'd imprinted on her so much sooner. This was incredible, which then led me to think of our previous activities. Which finally led me to think about how we could only get better, since that was my first time. Rosalie, I should have told you that was my first time. Well, technically first 3 times. I was stopped by Rosalie's deep kiss. I hope she's not trying to shut me up. You could have fooled me. We both laughed, while she spoke again, but I'm sorry I didn't ask if it was alright first. I know we were both into it, but I hope it was okay that your first time was with me. She smiled and gazed into my eyes. I could help but stare back into her eyes. Are you kidding me? It was totally my idea, and I've been wanting it to happen for a while. Well, really, since I understood my true imprint, of course. I wouldn't have wanted it to be with anyone else. I love you, I just hope it was alright for you. I know we have years to get better at it and it'll only get better from here, but it was way better than I've ever had. I am quite impressed, puppy. As she laughed, I puffed out my chest in cockiness, then laughed along with her. She continued, I'm sure it's because this was filled with love and passion, both of which are extremely hard to find. I nodded, then replied, or maybe it's tea. He imprint pull that made us so attracted to one another and made it so good. We both smiled at that. Then, while thinking about the imprint, a thought hit me and it was time to get serious. Listen, about earlier. I don't want to lose you. I know you said you had to do what you did, but I never want to feel that terrified and helpless ever again. Please don't make me feel like that again, I said. My heart was racing as the last couple hours hit me and I took deep breaths to calm down. Jacob, I know it has taken me time, since this is so new and strange, but I really didn't think doing something like that would affect you so much. Although I guess I understand now, because of how I felt earlier, when had she felt scared and nervous around me. During the fight, while we were healing, in her dream. What do you mean? How did you feel? Were you scared too? I was about to sit up, but she kept me laying down, since her body was still against mine. No, I promised Ness I wouldn't say anything. But let's just say I thought you were at her house earlier and I was jealous. I watched her bite her lip. I looked at her through scrunched eyes. Jealous? Why would being at her house make you, unless Nessie was with a boy, unless you saw or heard, could Nessie be together with someone? Oh, which means Brady, oh man, he's dead meat if Edward finds out. Aussie pieced together what happened and nodded when I understood why she would have been feeling upset and scared. Rosalie, why would I be at her house? I told you that I wouldn't ever leave or cheat on you. I frowned. Didn't she trust me? I listened to her side of what happened after she killed Emmett. She finished with, so that's why I can sort of understand your feelings earlier. My dad. I shook my head and laughed. I said I was going to the Cullens and I guess he assumed Nessie's place. I will fix this. I should have just said your house. He would have understood that more. I'm sorry, Rose, although when I thought about it, I did say I was going to see Rosalie. He was the one who told me to check in with Nessie and Bella. Just as I was opening my mouth to tell her that, she responded, hey. It's all right. I'm not upset. I'm relieved that things are finally clicking. None of the other stuff matters now because I'm starting to understand our relationship more and more. You're my pup now. She laughed and continued, my man, my dog, my wolf. As she smiled at me, I completely forgot what I was going to tell her. I grinned and held her closer to me. And you're mine, my leech, my angel, my everything, my older woman. I bit back a laugh at the thought. She's so much older. What? She smirked. Nothing at all. I slid away from her and sat up in bed, but she pulled me right back down. Tell me or no more love for you. Now it was Rosalie who began to get out of bed. I opened my mouth, pulled her back to me again and grinned. I was just thinking how you're my woman now. I grinned, but added with a smirk. You're robbing the cradle. She playfully slapped my bare chest and growled. Take that back. You are so not nice. We both were laughing hard. As I calmed down, I grabbed her hands and held them to my chest. Then I pulled her in for a deep kiss. She kissed him back, and before we could get too carried away, I gave in. I'll take it back. I saw her smile in triumph, so I quickly added. You're robbing the toddler bed. I was off the bed and ran out of the room before she could catch me. I heard her gasp and begin to chase after me. I thought I felt a soft kiss against my forehead. But I also thought that it happened in my dream and so I stayed asleep. I only opened my eyes when I heard the front door shut and noticed I was alone. I'm very happy I didn't dream of the best night of my life. But where did she go? I hope this wasn't too fast for her. My mind raced as I thought about Rosalie now rejecting the imprint because maybe this was all too much for her. What am I, a chick? I shook my head, got out of bed and threw on cutoffs and a shirt. I was pleased that my wrist seemed to be healed and I couldn't wait to show Rosalie. As I stepped out of the room, I heard my dad roll into the kitchen with a smirk. Have a good night, son. I blushed and responded, something like that. I grinned and changed the subject. How was fishing? How was Charlie? I'm going to ignore the fact that you switched topics since you rarely ever ask. Dad chuckled. The fishing and Charlie were both fine. Sue came over to Charlie's after work and we ate like royalty. I nod. Dad suddenly distracted again by wanting to find Rosalie. I glanced towards the door, antsy to get out of here. Son, I wanted to talk with you about your intentions with your imprint, Dad spoke courteously, and I squinted my eyes at his words. My intentions. He should know. Unless he didn't want me to be with her. Before I could open my mouth to defend my situation, he spoke again. I know you TW. Oh, have gotten close and the pack has grown very fond of her. I was waiting to ask, but because of your unique circumstances and both becoming injured. What is it? I asked bluntly, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Do you plan on marrying her? Dad asked just as bluntly. Yes, absolutely. I responded without thinking and widened my eyes at the thought. Suddenly a wedding flashed through my mind and I grinned at how excited and not scared or nervous it made me. Dad grinned. That's what I was hoping you'd say. I was waiting for the right time to give this to you. He threw a velvet box at me and I caught it with one hand. I opened it and then opened my mouth. It was my mother's ring. Dad, I can't. I didn't know what to say. You can and you will. It's what your mother would have wanted. She would have wanted to see you happy. And she most certainly would have loved Rosalie. He grinned, as we both wiped our cheeks from fresh tears. I hugged him tightly. Thanks, Dad. This means a lot. He rolled into the living room and I quickly grabbed the phone. I dialed the Cullens phone and hoped Drive. Cullen answered. On the second ring, he sure did. Hey Jacob, what can we do for you? He asked happily. Look, I want to do this right and you are the closest she has to a father. I have a ring and I love her. I will treat her right and... Carlyle chuckled. Slow down Jacob. Esme is here and you're on speaker phone now. What are you saying? I took a deep breath. I've always known I've shared this special connection with Rosalie. After the fight and the couple of times I almost lost her, I realized I can't lose her. With your permission, both of your permissions, I'd like to ask you for her hand in marriage. I paused waiting for their response. Esme squealed and clapped. How romantic. Carlyle chuckled again. That was very considerate of you and I know it'll go a long way with Rosalie. I think I speak for both of us when I say that you're doing the right thing. Esme just responded. Yes, yes, yes. We said goodbyes and I hung up. I went to walk out the front door. Dad just nodded and said, well done. Now go on and get out of here. You know where you need to be. I gave him one last hug and ran out the door. I didn't want to phase, so I shoved the ring in my pocket and ran in the direction of her scent. I could still follow her trail. The longer I ran, the stronger it became. I eventually heard movement and watched her take down an animal to feed. When she was finished, I stepped out from the tree I was behind. Hey, I called out to her, not wanting to catch her off guard. Hey to you. She smiled and walked over to me. I was greeted with a hug and took her into my arms. I heard you leave the house without saying goodbye and followed you. I gave her a small smile and kissed her neck gently. I then picked her up with one arm supporting her legs and the other holding her back. I started to walk in the direction of my house, thinking about where I could propose to her. On the cliffs. At dinner. What about your... She asked, motioning to my wrist wrapped around her legs. I knew you were going to ask. I chuckled. My wrist is as good as new. I'm not in pain, so I don't need to worry. I grinned at her. Well, okay then. Rosalie smiled back at me. We were staring into each other's eyes and I couldn't get enough. You know, I almost thought you left me. Like you had regretted us. I admitted with a chuckle. She shook her head with a small laugh. No, never, she said quickly. It reminded me of how quick I responded to my dad asking me about marriage. Could she be ready now too? I mean, I'm sorry you thought that. Good sex just always drains the energy out of me and makes me very hungry. I saw her smirk and wink at me. I opened my mouth and Dee blushed before smirking back at her and responding, well, I guess you're going to be feeding a lot more often then. I would be quite all right with that. We both grinned at her answer. I suddenly felt like I needed to take care of her. Did you at least get enough to eat or did you need more? Because I can let you go if you want. Oh no, I'm all done. I just needed a snack. I'd rather not be anywhere else right now. Well, besides going back to bed again. I let out a low growl and stopped instantly, staring at her. I need to do this now. We both crave each other and it will only get better. I want that too. I kissed her deeply, then pulled back. But first, I do have a surprise for you. I felt her jump out of my arms and push me away. I frowned. Maybe now isn't the time. Talk about more whiplash. I thought we were over this. She sat on a log with her head in her hands. She then began to shake her head. Rosalie, what's wrong? I asked worriedly. I knelt down in front of her and pulled her into my arms. I just have to sit here for a bit to calm down, okay? She glanced up at me and gave me an empty smile. No, it's not okay. Talk to me. I frowned and pulled away. I let out a sigh and said, look, if you don't want this, I gestured between us and continued, just say so. And if you don't want to be with me because it's too much, I heard her gasp and so I stopped talking. Don't want this. Are you joking? Jacob, I'm here with you, aren't I? I'm just trying to sort out everything that is real and not just in my head. I want to make sure this isn't a trick like the last time. She paused. And before I could ask what she meant, she continued. I had this nightmare when I was passed out during the fight. And it was wonderful and then just awful, but now that I can. Emmett's dead because I killed him myself. I guess everything is still okay, right? I tried to wait while she figured out her thoughts. I couldn't stop myself from asking, Nightmare, are you sure you're okay? I don't want to force you to do something you don't want to do. Especially if he had anything to do with it before. I searched her face for any sign of discomfort. She only smiled at me with her true, Rosalie smile. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was a stupid power that one of the vampires, who had died, used against me. I was just a little traumatized by it. Now that I remember that this is real and you are real, I'm ready. Let's go. She stood up by my side and took my hand in hers. When she began to walk to a random place in the woods, I had to ask, Rosalie, where are you going? I chuckled and smirked at her confidence. Going to my surprise. I let go of her hand for a split second and took out my mother's ring and knelt on the ground. She'd never expect this to be her surprise, right? Once she turned to face me, she opened her mouth in shock. Rosalie, I know I only just gave you that promise ring, but almost losing you had me scared out of my mind. I realized that I don't want to waste another minute not being with you. Last night, you said that you wouldn't leave and I'm still hoping this is the case. I even talked to your parents already, and they both agreed that this was an appropriate move, if you agreed of course. I watched as she covered her mouth. When I heard that I was the first person you wanted after you became conscious again. That you wanted to call me to check on me, even though you were dealing with your own wounds, I knew how you truly felt, how I truly felt. I smiled and winked at her. Rosalie, I promise to love you and never let you go. To keep you safe from danger and fight with and for you always. To never cheat on you, use you, hurt you or cause you any kind of pain. What I'm trying to get at is, will you marry me? I waited for her response for what seemed like years. I was so scared she was going to turn me down. I knew the wheels in her head were turning. She eventually nodded and gave me a huge smile. Yes, of course I will, Jacob. She tackled me and I caught her, even more thankful I was completely healed. She wrapped her legs around my waist and I held her with one arm and showed her the ring up close. I knew she was impressed with the ring, and when I told her it belonged to my mother, I knew she felt even happier. I was very pleased with my imprint's contentment. The next month, I was standing up front with my groomsmen who were all congratulating me and letting me know that the gift we had been working on for the month was completed yesterday. I grinned and knew that nothing could go wrong today. Unless Rosalie changes her mind, but I know she won't. The guys went to wait with their partnered bridesmaid to walk down the aisle and I shook the nerves off. I felt my dad pat my shoulder. I'm incredibly proud of you, son. You've overcome a lot in the past few months. I grinned as he continued, you remind me of my younger self. You go after what you want. Never stop doing that. I nodded. Thanks, Dad. You know I look up to you. I'm excited to see where this new journey takes me. We both stopped talking as the music began. Since Dad was marrying us, he stayed up front with me and I was grateful. One by one the bridal party walked down the aisle together and split at the altar, girls to the left and boys to the right. Well, boys to my left and girls to my right anyways. Emily and Sam were followed by Quill and Claire, Brady and Nessie, Edward and Bella, Seth and Esme, Jasper and Alice, and finally Embry and Leah. Sister and Colin's niece came down the aisle throwing flowers, while Emily's nephew carried the rings. As the music changed, the guests rose to their feet and turned to face the back of the aisle. Walking down the aisle came Rosalie and Carlisle. I was so incredibly happy that I couldn't stop a few tears from falling. Embry patted my back in comfort, and I cleared my throat by the time she got to me. Rosalie had looked so beautiful. I couldn't help but kiss her cheek when she took my hand. As I pulled her forward, I glanced at Carlisle, who shook my other hand and gave me a stern look that said, "Don't hurt her." I nodded at him and held out my arm for Rosalie to take, instead of pulling her the rest of the way up. As we faced each other, I couldn't stay quiet and had to tell her how beautiful she looked. She made a comment back at me and we listened to Dad's speech. I was so lost in her eyes and thoughts of our future that the ceremony flew by. As it came time to say our vows, I nearly choked up at both of our words. But I made it through. Jacob, if anyone asked me years ago if I thought I'd be where I am now, I would have laughed in their face. And now, I can't imagine anywhere else I'd rather be. You keep me on my toes constantly, and watching you grow into a different person felt so real. You were not what I imagined for my imprint, you were so much more. I can't wait to live, laugh and be with you for as long as you allow it. You are my moon, and I'll always love you. Rosalie, I never thought I would find happiness again. I thought I was doomed to live this life alone and miserable. Every time something good came along, it was ripped away from me. That was until you came along and wouldn't leave me alone. You needed to be by my side, and although I didn't know it at the time, I needed you there. I'm so grateful that you found me and that I have something in this long life to look forward to each day. You are my son, and I'll always love you. After our vows, Dad pronounced us husband and wife and that I could kiss the bride. So I leaned down and kissed her deeply in front of everyone. After the ceremony, we greeted those who came to the wedding, before heading to the reception. Some people stayed, while others had to head home. I was on edge when I noticed that the Volturi had made it to the wedding. I frowned, while Rosalie squeezed my hand. I just didn't want any new wolves phasing anytime soon, or any human hurt because of a careless mistake. As a group, we headed towards the cliffs to party at our reception. Alice took us down the beach some ways away to take family and group pictures. Before we joined the rest of the party, everyone seemed to be enjoying the night by eating and dancing. I nodded at the DJ, who cleared off the dance floor and announced the bride and groom's first dance. I had him play 1,000 Years, which was ironic and still a favorite of Rosalie's. I also impressed her with not having 2 left feet and leading her in the dance. As the song ended, Carlisle asked for the next dance and I gave him Rosalie's hand in respect. Leah came up and offered to dance with me. I took her up on her offer and we danced close to my new bride and her father. You've really grown up. It's crazy how fast time flies, Leah said while smiling at her imprint, as he winked towards her. So have you, Lee. I grinned. You have no idea how happy I am to see you so happy. That's because of you. She looked at me. You didn't give up on me, even when I frustrated you on patrol. And you let me leave to find my happiness. I owe you big time. You owe me nothing. Life should be about choice and not something forced upon you. I smiled at Rosalie as she seemed deep in conversation with Carlisle. You make it seem like imprinting as a choice, Leah whispered low enough to where only I could hear her. Sometimes it doesn't feel. Leah, think about how you feel with Steve right now. Do you love him? I asked her. Well, of course, Do you think if you weren't a wolf you'd choose him? She thought for a moment. Well, if I hadn't phased Sam and I. That's not the question I asked. Our dancing had slowed, but we kept moving to not make a scene. I looked over and saw Rosalie now dancing with Edward. Leah and I continued to whisper quietly. I continued, leave Sam out of the equation. Could you see yourself with Steve even if you hadn't turned into a wolf? Without thinking, Leah nodded. I would like to think in another time period and universe that we would have had a normal, non-imprint relationship. That's exactly how I feel about Rosalie. Taking imprinting out of the equation, we fell in love. Yes, it seemed like it was forced, but in reality it was just the universe telling us what would have happened anyways. I grinned, as I saw Leah's mind still reeling. Plus, it wouldn't have been guaranteed that you and Sam wouldn't have broken up. Had the wolf thing not been an issue, I know you two had been in a young love. I looked at Bella. But believe me, humans change all the time. Pun not intended. We both laughed. Yeah, I guess you're right, Leah responded. Thanks, Jake. It's always great talking with you. Sure. I grinned, realizing that my wife was now finishing her dance with Edward. After Steve shook my hand and took Leah's hand to dance with her, I walked over to Rosalie and asked if she wanted to go back to our table. As we got to the table, she pulled me down to her level to kiss me. I gave in to her kiss and smirked as she deepened the kiss. Save it for the honeymoon, my love. I winked, holding her tightly. Carlisle and Esme walked over to congratulate us again and let us know of their plan. Our wedding present to you is an island that is under your name, called Isle Rosalie. Esme smiled and gave Rosalie a big hug. Carlisle found it just last weekend and thought it would be the perfect place for you two to escape if you ever need to. Just like Carlisle and I do occasionally. Wow. A whole island. Thank you. You both mean so much to us. She responded and hugged them both. I also hugged them and shook Carlisle's hand in appreciation without any words. Shortly after, we cut into the cake. I knew that Rosalie couldn't eat and enjoy the cake, so I figured while everyone was distracted I could take her to see what all the wolves and Cullens have been working non-stop for a month on. Now I can give you my present. I began to remove my tie and black jacket to phase. Rosalie grabbed my arm and smirked. Hey now, save it for the honeymoon, she joked, mimicking his voice from earlier. I chuckled with her. Rosalie, when I shift, follow me, okay? I want to show you something. She nodded as I continued removing my clothes. Once I finished undressing and shifted, I ran deep into the woods. While she followed, as I got closer to the place, I let out a puff of air and began to slow down. I quickly shifted and before getting dressed, I covered her eyes with my hands. I gulped and said, now if you don't love it, you can tell me, okay? I felt her nod and I walked us about a half-mile further. When we stopped, I uncovered her eyes and showed her the surprise. All hands chipped in to help me build Rosalie a house. Alice told me what she would love to have included. Once the outline was designed less than 24 hours after I spoke to Alice, we began the build. I was nervous about what she thought. To calm my nerves, I quickly got dressed and waited for her response. Then she said, Jacob, it's perfect. I'm ready to go look inside. I let out a chuckle and took her hand. Then guided her through the house. Yesterday was the last moving day, where all of our things were already placed inside the house. I knew she was impressed to see our home with our things inside. I grinned as she walked back through the house and towards the back porch. The view was beautiful with mountains and a stream flowing. This was the perfect place to relax and I knew this was where I'd be finding her most of the time. As she took it all in, I stepped up behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. A little birdie to me that this was a must. I chuckled, while she leaned back into me for a few minutes. She finally turned and faced me, wrapping her arms around my neck. I love it, Jacob. It's beautiful and perfect. I watched her gaze draw back to the inside of the house. Just like you, I couldn't stop myself from saying. I leaned down to kiss her neck. You're amazing, Rosalie. Thank you for allowing me to make you happy. She shook her head and grinned. Jacob, I feel like I don't deserve all of this because of how I treated you in the past. But since you have given me a chance to make amends, I will treat you right, I promise. I love you and I always will. She kissed me deeply. We both heard a noise in front of the house and quickly ran for the front door. Once Rosalie swung it open, we noticed everyone from the wedding outside. Surprise! Everyone shouted, causing us to grin widely. I watched as Rosalie went around for more hugs, while I shook many hands and gave side hugs simultaneously. While we finished saying thank yous, Edward pulled up in a car. All right, newlyweds, it's time for your honeymoon. There will be plenty of time to check out the new house later. Rosalie and I climbed into the car waving goodbye at everyone. At least I finally have you all to myself, I whispered in Rosalie's ear and leaned in to kiss her. As long as I have you in my life, I couldn't be any happier. She responded, leaning in to kiss me one last time and before we left for Isle Rosalie. The end.